And let's rise and pledge our allegiance to the flag. David, you want to lead us?
Yes, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Board Member Aranda,
Here.
Board Member Correa, absent. Board Member Maderos,
Here.
Chair Jabris.
Here. Okay. Every month we set aside some time to hear from the public about items that are not going to be on the agenda otherwise. Is there anything from the public? No, seeing nothing. In Zoom land? Any hands raised? Don't see any, Liz, do you? Okay. So we move to number 3, consent, which is the affidavit of posting and the regular minutes for October 3rd. Is there a motion to pass the consent agenda?
Oh, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Okay, going to number 4, discussion. A site design review permit, 701 3rd Street. Is there a staff report on this?
There is a staff report, and I'd like to introduce Meg Clovis, our architectural historian, to briefly cover the this particular item. It's going to be redundant before the Planning Commission, but we did do an updated report, phase 1 report, and also a new DPR form accordingly. So with that, I think we need to get started with just perhaps Meg covering those 2 reports.
Meg, it's good to see you again.
Good evening.
Good evening. We've seen this project before. What's new?
Well, what's new is work commenced on the building, and unfortunately, walls came down and the roof came down, and there was no floor left either. So the only thing that's remaining of the house is the front facade, and the front porch. And it's almost like a stage set when you walk through the front door. So with so much historic fabric that was lost, the property no longer qualified as a historic resource. And so accordingly, I was asked to update do an addendum for the phase 1 and describing how the house had lost its historic fabric. That photo that you see there, the ridge beam of the roof had been removed, so that's why there's so sort of a wavy ridge line there. And this is the next photo, shows what the house looks like inside now. You can see that it's basically gone except for the front elevation. So it no longer has enough historic fabric to be considered a historic resource. So what I concluded was that the house is still in a historic neighborhood. And so in order to maintain the integrity of the streetscape, that every effort should be made to maintain the side gable configuration of the house, and also that remaining front elevation with the symmetrical facade. As I was rereading this report, I also thought I should add that it should remain a one-story house as well, to remain consistent with the setting and the neighborhood as well. So it's unfortunate that this happened, but it's, I think, the family's been through the mill with this one, that's for sure. And so that was the conclusion of my report. If anybody has any questions on this property, please let me know.
Well, I have a few questions just by way of follow-up to your presentation right now. Wow. Can you go to the slide that shows the demo? Not that one, the next. Yeah, that one there, or either one of those. Was that demo done pursuant to a permit? And if so, how was that permit issued prior to Meg being able to complete what she needed to complete? To staff, I asked that.
Well, there was a building permit issued for this, and then the permit did include some interior remodeling. We did not have an architect or a structural engineer advise the applicant regarding how to treat the interior as it was being renovated. Our understanding of the project that was approved via permit was that it added a little over 300 square feet to attach this particular house to the unit located behind. You can't really see it here, but it is an accessory dwelling unit that was added, a newer unit. And so the idea that the owners had would be to connect these two. There was a small breezeway in the back. And then you may recall this was just approved recently. And so building permit was issued pursuant to the site and design review approval. And then as the interior work was being done, the walls fell. So as Meg was saying, it's unfortunate. When this site and design review permit comes before the Planning Commission, we have some conditions of approval that address the need for structural engineer and architect involvement in the renovation of the building to preserve at least the context for the front portion, although it won't have that historic integrity that's gone. So that's how this evolved. Permits were issued, and because of the nature of the interior wall, this actually the inside of the building. And I think you see here some framing that is relatively new. The owners didn't add some of this. This was added by a prior owner, especially this portion in the front. And then some of the framing that you see was added to stabilize the wall. As you can see here, this portion of the wall just fell. And so this framing was added. And at this point, there was a stop work that was issued because the project became quite a bit different. This wall is higher than the plans, the approved plans indicated. So the roof height will be a little higher. So that's where we are. We're treating this as a brand new project. And the reason that we're doing this is because the historic integrity of the existing building no longer exists. What's basically happening here is that there's a new structure being built around the front portion of the building. So that's the status. That's the best I can do to explain what happened here.
Okay, well, I realize that this is gonna come up again on the Planning Commission agenda, as I understand it. But right now we have our history hats on, and when I hear from our historical consultant, the illustrious Meg Clovis, say that there's nothing left to evaluate, it's all been wiped out, then I, for one, I don't know what the other board members think, but I think, how did that happen? So was it a coordination issue? Did these owners exceed the bounds of what they were allowed to do? How does it happen that May Clovis says, I can't do a historical survey because it's all been wiped out? That seems to me to either be one of two things. They exceeded the bounds of what they're allowed to do, or there was a coordination issue, i.e. Meg was not allowed to get in there prior to all this stuff being torn out. And, you know, this slide that we're on right now shows clearly there's a new wall, a new header above the window. Everything's been framed up. So quite a bit of work has been done before Meg was allowed to get in there and do what she needed to do. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, this ship has sailed. How do we prevent that? Two questions I have. How do we prevent this from happening in the future? And secondly, is there any penalty? And maybe this will come up during the planning commission portion of this item. Is there any penalty to owners who do exceed the bounds of what they're allowed to do? And what is that penalty? Because I don't think we can allow this to happen again. I'd be happy to hear from other board members regarding Meg's comments at this point.
I just want to echo what Dan says. I would like to know how we can prevent this from happening in the future. You know, I don't want to see that we start to lose these historic structures because there was a oops or a misstep. I do get that these things do happen, but we need to make sure that we're doing everything possible to make sure that these buildings keep their historic integrity. Yeah, Meg, I'm not sure if you have anything for us on how to prevent something like this in the future, or if you've seen this happen with other properties in other towns. I would like to hear.
I've never seen this before. Brian and I have discussed this, and we thought perhaps we could put together a list of historic architects or structural engineers that should be associated with these projects, so they can assess what the structural integrity of the property is before work commences. The contractor on the project said that, well, what his quote was that the wood structural elements inside the wall cavity fell apart like it was made of straw. And so perhaps if a structural engineer or a historic architect had done an assessment prior to the commencement of work, this could have been prevented. So Brian and I had discussed that perhaps we should make a list of qualified people who could be associated with these types of historic projects.
Well, whether they're qualified or not, it seems like a coordination issue, meaning you were supposed to, when I hear you report to this Historic Resources Board that I was not able to complete my historic survey because everything had been wiped out, then my question is, well, why were you not able to complete whatever work you needed to do before it being wiped out?
Well, I was able to complete the initial assessment, which determined, and this was prior to work beginning. And at that time, I decided that the house was a historic resource,
Right.
and it was eligible.
That's the one we went through before, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's where we left off.
And then I was asked to do a phase 2 report, which was whether or not their plans met the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. The plans at the time were very simple. It was just a connecting L between the ADU and the historic house, which is a real common rehabilitation technique. It doesn't affect the historic house. Plus it was at the rear elevation. It was on an addition. Everything looked good. Everything was fine. So I did complete that report, but the problem occurred when the work actually started. And as the contractor said, everything just sort of disintegrated.
Well, of course, the contractor's gonna say that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's focus on what you just said. The work started before you were able to complete your evaluation. Is that true?
No, I had done my phase 1 and I had done the phase
No,
2.
phase 2.
Right. I had
Well, then
completed the phase 2 as
repeat.
well.
Maybe I misheard you. Can you repeat that? Work started
Yes.
before what?
Yes, I completed the phase 1 and I completed the phase 2 based on the plans that were submitted.
So what happened as regards the project prior to you being able to do whatever you think you needed to do? Or were you able to do everything you needed to do?
I was able to do everything I needed to do, and then I was called back in after the walls collapsed.
The walls collapsed. Who said the walls collapsed?
The contractor.
Okay. And what were you called back in to do at that juncture?
To determine whether or not there was enough historic fabric left to consider the property a historic resource.
And your conclusion was, again, I don't know, because there's not any all the fabrics in
No,
the.
no, my conclusion was no, there's not enough historic fabric. In fact, probably at least almost 80% of the historic fabric was gone. And so it could not be considered a historic resource.
And the reason why the historic fabric was gone is because it had been demoed and thrown in a dumpster. True?
Well, the walls, yes, the walls collapsed.
According to you or the contractor?
The
Don't say-
contractor,
Right.
yeah.
The contractor said the walls collapsed, even though they've been standing there for decades. Okay.
Well, since 1907.
I think that constitutes decades. Okay. David, anything?
Yeah, I'm disappointed, of course, like everybody else is, but the integrity is gone and I understand where we're at with that. But the steps that we took to preserve it failed somewhere along the line. I think we need to backtrack and find out where those steps failed so that we can prevent this from happening in the future. And I'm for that too as well. When we do archaeological surveys and when we do find that find something that's rare and precious to us when it comes to historical value, particularly when it's archaeological and we find it underground or something. A lot of steps are taken to preserve, to make sure that we do everything we can to understand what happened there, and also how do we preserve the story that exists there. And some reason we got to put that into our ability as a city. Whatever steps we have to determine at the very beginning when we look at these walls and say, hey, when we come to these walls, they have to be handled a certain way. And I think that's where we failed on this particular project. Somehow or another, we have to add another step here. If it's there, we didn't do it. So, but I'm pretty much, as far as the questions were asked this morning, today, I'm all for that. I mean, I understand where we need to go with that. Thanks, Dan, for bringing all that stuff up.
You're welcome,
And,
David. You're welcome. David.
that's pretty much what I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, so in response to all of the comments, I think they're all valid. And as Meg indicated, it's more expensive. The remedy is more expensive. It's more time consuming. When people own properties like this, they need to be treated with a certain degree of careful sensitivity. Not only that, but in following the knowledge that can be provided by a structural engineer or a historical architect. So if someone had looked at the interior of this building as the construction began, that understood that these walls, if the finishes were removed, would simply fall because those finishes were provided that degree of structural integrity, then there could have been some measure taken to brace the walls before any work was conducted. So I think that that kind of thing, we need to make sure that we incorporate into the conditions of approval. You'll notice in the conditions of approval for the building that's being built in following the site design review permit for this, that we are requiring a structural engineer and an architect to address the front portion of the building to maintain its character. So you will see, even though the integrity of the overall building is lost, you will see a significant attempt to maintain the character of the building as it's represented in the neighborhood. And I think that's pretty important here. It's as much as we can do to make sure that the historical character of the area is respected in the new construction.
Okay, I think that, Megan, anything else to add before we conclude the staff report and open up to the public?
No.
Okay, let's do that then. Let's open this up to the public. Kara? Liz, you have a speaker card? You know Kara Vonk, right? She probably. Oh, yeah, Kara, let's hear. Does the applicant want to speak first? That's protocol. I don't know, is the applicant on Zoom?
I don't see them on Zoom.
Typically, we like to hear from the applicant first. Okay, in the absence of the applicant, Kara, what do you have to say?
Thank you, Carla, the neighbor. I live on the store. This is on 3rd Street. And I live in a very historic house built around 1860. And there's a strong connection between these two properties. They were sisters, and so the house was 701 was built for the sister by the dad. Who first lived in our house and then the river.
Oh, wait, so you mean they're literally, they were owned by two sisters, literally? I see.
Anyway, it's a lovely couple. They're young. They've got a 1.5-year-old. They're working. I mean, they're super stressed out and have a lot of stuff going on in their lives. But in terms of the monitoring, you know, I think that's what should take place with these historic buildings. Because Meg did her job. She gave you reports. She told you what needed to be maintained, what was carefully defined on the house. And then, you know, when they started demoing, who knows if the wall works. You know, our house had termites. We had it tented when we bought the house. And then we replaced some areas that were pretty bad. But overall, you know, it's so you'll notice that wall is a lot better than what was initially there. And I think Meg kind of fall down along because they perfect in the feature because it kind of sloped down. Anyway, you know,
Or something. Oh, shoot. Okay, sorry. So that's all lost. But anyway, I think it's monitoring that needs to happen. And I do have some specific comments to make when we get to the planning commission part of it. But I just want to let you know that, you know, our properties are quite intertwined. Our house, I just measured it. Our house is about 8.5 feet, our opposing windows, bedroom windows, 8.5 feet apart. And I think we're only 5.5 feet apart in another part. So we're very close to each other. Okay. And so I'll make some more specific comments when you look at that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
And our understanding of the scope of the project was that it was simply the addition So.
Okay, anyone else from the public in chambers? Seeing no one, anyone else on Zoom land, Liz? Okay, public comment is therefore closed. Returning back to the Historic Resources Board for final comments and thoughts. Jose, you want to start with you?
No comments.
David?
No comments, but I'd be willing to help anybody that would look into the future and see how we need to prevent these things from happening. Be happy to help with that.
Yeah, we do, for example, with Casa Rosa, project is being monitored by an architect, and we do have a monitoring program for it. So there are character defining features and elements within the project. As you know, that project was gutted also on the inside, and a lot of character defining features were removed before anybody knew it. This is kind of similar to that, something that happens behind the scenes. We don't really know it until we discover through a site inspection that the walls are higher than were approved, or that things are different than were represented in the plans. So with respect to the Casa Rosa project now, for example, we do have a careful monitoring program and a periodic report that's submitted by the architect. That's historical architect Garavaglia for that particular project. So we do know how to do this. We're just surprised this particular one went so far. Similarly, we had 903 3rd Street, which is being rebuilt carefully. That project also progressed way past what was approved. That was an addition also to an existing concrete stucco bungalow, and the contractor kept peeling away the exterior until it was finally noticed by passersby that the building was being completely stripped of its exterior concrete. And so we weren't aware of that happening because it was being done behind a fence and behind the existing structure. So some of these things we don't know. We catch them as we can. But they do progress because once the work begins, contractors keep going until they find some stability in the structure. That may have been what happened here.
Maybe, but let's drill down on that a little bit just for a minute. I'm assuming that if you go back to that slider, that's that new framed wall with the headers above the windows. Down. That one. That wall, the builder constructed according to approved plans, right?
No,
That's construction that was done without approval?
correct.
Okay, well, let's all make a note of that during the planning commission portion of this topic. How is it that someone's able to build a wall that has not been approved pursuant to plans that have not been approved? Are there plans that exist for the overall construction of this project?
Yeah, at this point.
What does that mean at this point?
Well, we do have plans that have been submitted. They're part of the packet for a planning commission review. And those plans reflect what the owners want to build as things go forward.
Were those plans those which were provided to the city for purposes of issuance of a building permit?
They have been submitted, but the building permit hasn't been issued yet.
Was there a demolition permit issued?
No,
So demolition occurred without a permit, and this construction occurred without a permit. Is that what you're saying?
correct.
I see. All right. Well, We'll reserve those conversations for the planning commission portion of the topic of this said, but there should be some ramifications to that because we cannot be demoing historic properties and building whatever we want to. If it's not.
So right now, the Historic Resources Board is just simply looking at the report provided by the architectural historian.
Yeah,
No, my paper says 6.
sorry, I know, I was late too.
So the paper says 6, so I'm just curious why.
The paper said 6.
Paper, what paper?
The one that was sent out to everybody?
That wasn't a, city sent out, the city did not send that.
The Zoom link says 6. On mine, the Zoom link says 6. And then the paper also says, planning commission, November 7th at 6 p.m.
The agenda, did you look at the agenda? The agenda says 5 o'clock.
This says 6 p.m. and then my Zoom link also says 6. The Zoom link says 6.
Are you guys the owners?
I'm the owner.
You're
So
the owner?
obviously I would like to.
All right, well, here's what I suggest, just have a seat, I'll catch you up real fast. Assistant City Manager was just explaining that this is, this portion of the discussion is for historic resources purposes only. We're gonna get back into your project during the planning commission. So this kind of, I mean, you probably would have liked to be here, sorry that you weren't. I was late, I thought it was 6 too, I was late just as well.
Love to be here, and I feel like that, at some point, I'd really like to kind of bring up the fact that this entire process has been super unprofessional. Honestly, feels like a lot of it has been intentional. Like I've had multiple emails with Brian. Nothing has been brought up about being here at 5 o'clock. I would have made arrangements to be here at 5 o'clock.
Okay, are you done?
I can be done for now, sure.
Okay,
I mean,
so just for the record, you said that you feel like the process hasn't been the best for you and that you object. I know, and you object to the 5 versus 6 thing, so we hear your comments, so those will be noted for the record. So we just went through your project from a historic standpoint. We heard from the Historic Resources gal, Meg Clovis, is it? Meg Clovis. And we were talking about what happened and that kind of thing. And you came in at the perfect time because we're kind of done talking about the historic stuff. And now when it goes to the planning commission in a minute, we will change seats and we'll be suddenly magically be turned into planning commissioners instead of historic resource board members. And then we'll talk about this all over again. And you're not going to miss that because you're here.
Well, what did I miss? I mean, just because,
Just a discussion about your structure and the building and what happened and a report, just a report. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, honestly, like I said, I just had little faith in the whole process. So
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked her if she's done.
yeah. No, I've had little faith in the entire process. And so you could say, we just kind of talked about it very briefly, but what was said, I truly don't know. I mean, I would have liked to be here to kind of say whether I think that's true, whether I think that's not true. I wasn't here, so.
And if it wasn't all going to be said all over again here in about 15 minutes, I would sympathize with you more, but
Sure.
I'm telling you, we're going to go through all of this all over again. If we weren't, then I would say, oh, we might have a problem. Now what do we do?
Sure.
But I don't sense there to be a problem
Okay.
because we're going to go over all this again.
I hope that's true. It's
It
just
will be true.
my
Trust
livelihood
me.
in my
And
house.
if it's not, you can hold me accountable. Okay.
I won't be able to know that I wasn't here, but
We can watch the tape maybe, but. All right.
So the purpose of the HRB discussion is to just simply understand that the existing building as it stands does not have historical integrity. And what happens when that happens is that then we can look at the proposed project that the owner wants to build as a new project. And that's what staff is recommending, is that because the building has no more historical integrity, our ordinance doesn't ask the HRB or the planning commission to consider the HRB's recommendation. There just isn't any because the building now is classified as a status code of 6Z, which means it has no more historical integrity. So that's all we need to do, is to have the HRB recognize that's the new status of this particular project. Okay. And then that's it. That's the extent of the HRB's purview.
Yeah, I think I understand that. May, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And do we have a way of showing her?
There we go.
There she is.
That's the wrong one.
Whoops,
So Meg,
what's happened?
Hold on, let me take control. There you go.
Ah, okay.
so Meg, consistent with what we've been discussing just over the last minute or so. It seems to me that the back of the house is wiped out. So when we talk about historic fabric and your ability to analyze this, that, and the other thing, you're referring to that which was wiped out, which is the back of the house. However, the front of the house remains intact. So is it the intention for this project to have the front of the house look as if it always did historically?
Well, yes, my recommendation was that the symmetrical facade, the front porch, and the side gable roof configuration remains the same in the new construction. So
Okay.
hopefully that front facade, I know it's being propped up right now, it can be structurally stabilized and reused with the new project.
I see. Okay. I understand that concept. And let me add an editorial comment. I think that concept can work out pretty well. I don't know, Meg, if you're a fan of a television show called This Old House. I am. And they just finished a project recently in Concord, Massachusetts, one of the most historic places in the country. And the front of the house looked as it always had since the 1800s. But the back of it, holy smokes, did they go to town on the back of it. But their intention was to have it from the street view and from the public's view and from an aesthetic point of view and fitting into the historic fabric of the neighborhood and all those things that you mentioned, that the front of it looks like it has always been there. And from what I hear you saying right now, is that your intention with this project as well, correct?
Yes, I would hope so. I would hope the front can be stabilized and then fit in with the historic character of the neighborhood and the streetscape.
Okay, I hope so too.
Well, that is relevant to the site and design review permit and the conditions of approval. So, and I think that would be, right now, the HRB just needs to recognize the status, the new status, and then move on. We need to move on to planning commission hearing for the site and design review permit.
I understand that. Okay, so that's 4A, site design review permit for 701 3rd Street. Unless there's any further comments from the board members, no? Okay. Next under, and that's just on for discussion, so there's no action. We don't have to formally acknowledge anything, just I think it was staff's attempt to say like, hey, this is what's going on. As planning commissioner, as planning, that's right. But we're just board members. We're just historic board members right now. I know the changing hats thing is just drives you nuts after a while. Okay, just 4B then, moving on, historic preservation ordinance program. Last time we chatted about this. I encouraged everyone to read the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code about these things. I think it was put back into our packets. Did you guys read through this stuff? Did you have any questions? I hope you skipped all the definitions because they're really boring. Starting with 030, Historic Resources Board. The members shall consist of 5 members of the Planning Commission. That was changed. This used to be an independent board they were separate. I think you and that gal from Colorado worked on that, David, didn't you? And there's a
Yes,
lot-
I did.
And there's a lot of arguments as to why that makes more sense, I think, from my standpoint, but you and I talked about that, but
Right.
that's an aside. At least 2 members shall be appointed from among professionals in the disciplines of history, architecture, architectural history, planning, prehistoric and historic archaeologists, folklore, cultural anthropology, curation, conservation, and landscape architecture or related disciplines. At least 2 members. Well, I don't know about you. Are you an architectural historian in any way, Jose? David? No, me neither.
It depends on how far you want to go with that.
Well,
If you put a umbrella over a lot of things, I do have experience when it comes to restoration and what have you. And I do have contractual work when it comes to building structures too as well, not to mention cabinets and what have you.
Oh, good.
And that and restoration when it comes to the mission here in San Juan Bautista. So, when I hear about qualifications there, it depends on where we want to go with that. So go ahead.
No,
I'm just trying to think, where do we go when we're looking for people to do the right things for as far as the business goes of conducting what needs to be preserved, what needs to be considered, and the experience that goes into that. If we don't have it, we go get it in the meantime. If you and I don't have it, we'll find somebody who does,
Right.
so that we get go to the right source and have a right response.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know about you, but one of the ways I kind of interpret all those qualifications are that we want people on the Historic Resources Board who care.
Yeah.
I just disclosed my favorite TV show in the world is This Old House. And I care about architecture and all those things, but I'm not one of those disciplines. So was there anything else in those sections that jumped out that either of you guys?
I went through the whole section, but the chapter, I should say, when it comes to everything, and submitted my response in what I went through, editing it, made comments and changes, what have you. And I submitted that report to Ryan, which has changed since I submitted it.
Okay.
So
What I'd be interested in seeing that. Can you
Sure.
email that to me too?
I have a soft copy you can have
That'd be great. That
And
was
you
just kind of
can
your feedback and
edited
your
as you
thoughts.
go. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Mhm.
Good for you. Did you see the part where we're supposed to take on an annual kind of
Yep.
inquiry about stuff?
Yep.
There's a lot of things in here that we are not doing.
Yeah. Well,
That was
Okay.
that was my takeaway. Do you agree?
I think what we need to do when we attack something like this,
Mhm.
I think we should get together and decide how we're going to do this for what purpose. And I think we need to get into some kind of a workshop and get the experienced people that we need, that we say we don't have, to go through this and make sure that we're doing everything possible to make this particular chapter mean a lot to San Juan Bautista
To have it
in
be one of the-
particular.
I completely agree. And from what I understand is that Meg is going to be on board to help us with that task. But I thought that
So that means not just you and me, but the community as well, and our staff,
100%.
right?
No,
Okay.
I think what that looks like is Meg leading a workshop to which the public is invited.
Yep.
And we say, okay, this is what the Historic Resources
Yeah.
Board is supposed to be about.
Yep.
But yet here's where we are.
Yep.
How do we get from where we are to where we might want to be as a community?
And a lot of things, we need to really interject here is, how does it connect to the planning commission? I mean, how do we maintain it? How do we harmonize it or make it work for everybody so that we don't run into problems like we have today?
Right. No,
So
that is the question.
and the other thing we have to really worry about too is that we have a lot of projects in the fire right now that really needs to be looked at. And before those are finished, I wonder how much we're working on here now today. If that needs to be a part of what's going in the fire right now.
Yeah, I know.
So and then we're gonna gum up things. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work, and I think staff has really been working hard lately on a lot of projects and programs that we really air out and complete. And I'm wondering, here we go. We're going to attack another section, another chapter, and is that going to open another can of worms for those programs? I don't know. I hope not.
Well, I hope not either. But on the other hand, we call ourselves the city of history.
Yeah.
And we make a lot of money as a community on being the city of history. And I think maintaining our historical character, and as May calls it, our historic fabric, translates to economic development and dollars for us. So I think paying attention to history makes good sense all the way around. And I think the Historic Resources Board is one mechanism of doing that. Plus, it was created by statute. It's in the San Juan Municipal Code. We're not proposing this brand new. It's been on the books for a long time. So, Jose, any comments on the historic preservation ordinance?
No, other than I will say from our last meeting that maybe we really do need to look into whether we have the right members here, whether it makes sense that we're both on the Historic Resource Board and Planning Commission, or if those things need to be two separate entities and they're doing their own thing. I think you're 100% right, both of you, where we want to make sure that the history is preserved, that we're taking care of our community and doing this, but we also have the right people that are focused on just solely this, and just because it is very important and we don't want to lose sight of that. So I don't know what would be the next steps if that was something we wanted to look at, but I would agree. Yes, I'm not a historic architect and I'm not scared to say that. So, I just would hate to see another building like this have lose its integrity, and we're running into problems left and right around town.
Do you need to raise your hand and speak, or?
Public comment is closed.
Public comments closed, but I encourage you to write that note down, and then you'll have an opportunity when we suddenly become the planning commission. Does that sound good? All right, cool. All right, so that concludes I got to open up public comment. Anyone from the public on this historic preservation ordinance program as set forth in the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code? Kara, I'm looking at you. Nothing? All right. No one from Chambers? Anyone in Zoom land? Okay. So then 5 comments, Historic Resources Board members. Comments, David, Jose?
No, I think as far as our direction where we should go, I think we need to feel satisfied that we've gone through this between the board members and what have you, and set a course of action and how we want to implement that step by step. I think that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
And I've gone through it. I'll submit whatever. It's not going to be it's not going to be earth shattering as to where changes I want to put in there, but I think I put some thoughts into it.
Well,
Yeah.
really appreciate the energy and the effort there, David. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I think that's where we need to plan a course of action and see with ourselves and staff, and maybe get some professional people involved when we need to do that.
How can David's comments that he provided be distributed to us without violating the Brown Act in advance of the next meeting? Would it be as a part of the packet of the next meeting, or can we do it even sooner?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can
Yeah,
you just send it to
that's
Brian
fine,
and
right?
Brian send it to us?
Yeah, I don't think that's a Brown Act violation. That'd be great. Yeah, very eager to read your comments, and thank you again for putting the time and energy into doing that. Okay, any further comments, Jose?
No comments here.
Okay, community director. Development director. No, I'm sorry, did you say? Okay. And then therefore I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
What?
Second to adjourn, sorry.
Second on the motion to
To
adjourn. Okay. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Therefore, we move now to planning commission. Why don't we take a 5-minute break to readjust ourselves, and we'll see you in 5.
Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, November 7th, 2023 to order. Dan, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. This is the flag on which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, can I please get a roll call?
Commissioner Correa, absent. Commissioner DeBreeze. Commissioner Maderos,
Here,
Chair Aranda.
Here. All right, we are going to start off with our action, and that's to elect a vice chair. I guess we will start to take nominations from the commission to make that happen. So I am going to open the floor for nominations of the officer position vice chair. Self-nominations are acceptable. Are there any nominations that we can entertain?
I nominate Tony Correa.
Okay.
Commissioner.
Let's second that.
Yep. There we go.
I'd second the nomination for Tony Correa.
All right. And then I guess clerk, would I be doing a roll call for that?
Yes, please.
All right. Can I get a roll call?
Commissioner DeBreeze,
Yes.
Commissioner Maderos,
Yes.
Chair Aranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, moving on to the next action item B, site and design review for permit to connect the existing 747 square foot residence to an existing 504 square foot accessory dwelling unit with a 47 square foot connection on property known as 701 3rd Street, APN 002-330-009. The applicant is Isaiah Jimenez. Staff, do we have a report?
Yeah, we do. So going to get the staff report just for a second here. You move this. So this project started out as a simple addition to put two structures together that exist on the same site. 347 square foot addition constructed within a breezeway connecting the existing historic structure or what was formerly an historic structure with an accessory dwelling unit to the rear. During construction, as you heard from the architectural historian, some damage occurred to the interior of the historic residence. And we don't really know exactly what caused that damage. We weren't there, we just know the effect at this point. And the effect is, as you heard from the report prepared by our architectural historian, is that the structure has no more historic integrity. That said, there are some things that we can do to preserve the historical appearance of the building as a way of ensuring that the effect on the overall historic character of the neighborhood is maintained as much as possible. I'd like to say, first of all, that the HRB did talk about demolition, which is an activity referenced in the historic preservation ordinance that requires a site and design review permit all by itself. And so the problem is that if we're going to rely on the previous phase 1 report and the DPR that was prepared, we would be issuing a site and design review permit for demolition of an historic structure. And that presents a very difficult dilemma, because demolition of an historic structure requires an environmental review. And the environmental review that's required really assesses the significant impacts that occur to the historic structure. And we'd be obligated at that point to prepare a focused environmental impact report just for the demolition of this particular structure and its historical integrity. That process is a multi-month process. It's expensive. It requires that we hire a consultant to prepare the document. It requires first that we do an initial study and identify what the impacts are to the structure based on our architectural historian's review. Then it requires a public hearing, a public review period of 45 days, even after the document is finished. And then it has to go to hearing and be approved along with the project with findings. And ordinarily, the findings required for an EIR under those circumstances would probably require some sort of overriding considerations based on the circumstance here. So to avoid all that, and I understand that the owners are very frustrated with the process, but to avoid all that, we decided to treat this project as a new project. And so basically looking at the existing status of this particular project, status is 6Z, which means it has no more historical integrity. As a structure that has no more historical integrity, we're able then to look at the project that's proposed as a new project. And under those circumstances, we can exempt the project from having to go through that extensive environmental review. So while it's frustrating, the alternative that we would ordinarily have based on the law and our own CEQA guidelines is very onerous. So in comparison, the process that we're about ready to enter into here is very benign. And it may not seem that way from the outside, but looking at the alternative, it's a great boon to the owner to have this process underway. With that, I'd like to just briefly go through the proposal for this project as a new project under construction. You see here the site plan, the existing residence, and the proposal to add the small addition in the back, still alive and well, and part of the proposal. We'll look at the photographs in a minute, but basically you can see here that the interior will be refinished. The existing house floor plan will require it to be reconstructed. And so that floor plan looks basically, as you see here, The roof line of the building, the pitch will not be any steeper, but the height of the roof will be a little higher in the back. So instead of a 6-foot high ceiling here, which was a problem for the owner, now this revised project has an 8-foot ceiling. So it's a little higher. And then you see the profile for this new project protects and preserves the front portion of the house, which is most character defining as viewed from the street. And so the pitch here, 2 and 12, and then another steeper pitch here, 8 and 12, preserves that sort of A-frame look with the canopy covering the porch. And then you also see here the symmetrical windows and door placement with the posts and the porch overhanger being retained. One thing that we'd like to emphasize here is that the right side elevation does show some siding. Our understanding from this proposal is that this siding will extend all the way across this building here. So it looks like there could be some stucco here, but that's not what we're approving. The site and design review permit will require that this siding be extended all the way across that particular elevation. Other than that, we're looking for comparable treatment for the front as this roof is reconstructed. And then, so this is, I think this is the side that we were talking about with respect to the stucco appearance. Here, we're looking for the siding to run all the way across. There has to be a difference between this side. It doesn't really matter anymore because this building doesn't have any more structure, historical integrity, but I think the intent of the owner is to put back as much as possible this particular look for this building. And I think they're to be commended for that intent here with this project. Even though the reconstruction, the demolition and reconstruction is significant, I think that they are hoping to have the appearance of this building be compatible. What else is in the neighborhood, in particular the residents to the south. That's a brief staff report. One of the things that we do have, I'm going to stop sharing here and I'll go through the conditions of approval in the resolution very briefly. Let me get those. So this is the resolution of approval for this new project. We have site and design review permit findings in the staff report, and then conditions of approval require that the applicant submit plans consistent with the recommendations of the addendum to the phase 1 report. And that addendum called for the reconstruction of the front portion of the house to look like what's already there or what was there previously, with the roof line, the porch, support posts, stabilized and rehabilitated with symmetry of the front facade to look like the historic structure as it has over the past decades. And then we talked about a monitoring plan for this project, because the front portion of this house is so important from the standpoint of historical compatibility with the neighborhood. We want to make sure that an architect or a structural engineer is involved in monitoring the construction and advising the owner's contractor as they go along. And so we will ask the applicant to submit a monitoring plan for all of the elements referenced in the architectural historian's report. This is very similar to what I described that we do for Casa Rosa, which is to have a detailed monitoring plan. And as the project proceeds and touches one of those elements, then we have a monitor, a photograph, we have a note in the monitoring plan regarding what's been done. And as it's finished, we also have another photograph that says, here's the final product that results. And here is the architect's finding with respect to what was done. And then we want to make sure that, pardon me, that all the city's costs are covered with respect to these two reports that were submitted. We are asking for an additional condition of approval from the city engineer. This project, the site, is, as Cara was talking about during the HRB meeting, this site and the house immediately to the south were constructed about the same time and were intended to be used by the same family members various times. And because of that, the sewer line for this house runs across the property to the south. It then extends to the west and links up with sewer laterals of residences that connect with the main on 4th Street. That, of course, presents a problem. If anybody knows what's happening in downtown, for example, there are properties on 3rd Street that are connected together before they reach the main on 4th. And when one of those lines gets plugged up or service is disrupted for some reason, then sewer backs up into everyone's house. So what will happen here is that the owner has an opportunity now to fix this problem. There is a sewer lateral clean out in 3rd Street that was installed by the city. It's ready to go and ready to be connected to. So the sewer lateral extending to the south would be interrupted. And then the people that have access to the main on 4th Street would be on their own at that point. And then this property would not be affected by any disruption of service that might occur through those connections. And so it's a benefit. It's a little bit more costly, but over time, it will resolve potential problems that are pretty significant with respect to this particular property. So that's an additional condition that the city engineer and the public works director have requested be added to the conditions of approval. So that's the staff report. I will just briefly put up the phase 1 addendum, which was prepared by Meg. We talked about this during the HRB review, so we don't need to go through here, but just for those people that were not attending that portion of the meeting, these are the photographs of the existing house that show the current status. This property has a stop work order on it, so things are not progressing beyond this point until after the commission reviews and approves the new project. And then you see here recommendations with respect to character defining features that staff is recommending be continued. So with that, that concludes the staff report for this, and available to answer any questions. And the owner is here as well, so I know she's anxious to speak. And that's the staff report. And oh, by the way, something's happening here with this. Great, thanks. And so Meg is here. If Meg, do you have anything to add to the staff report?
No, I don't.
Okay, great.
All right, so I guess I'll open it up to public comment or the applicant. Yep. So is the applicant here?
Hello.
Welcome.
So I guess first I just mostly want to start off with the fact that and maybe this was mentioned in the last meeting, I don't know, I wasn't here, but this was all approved back in June, right? It essentially was the exact same thing that has been shown today, minus the one fault wall that fell. So I don't know if you can tell from the pictures, or, you know, if you want to bring them up, but the one wall fell. You said you didn't know how it fell down. Well, it was completely, from termite damage, right? It's 100-year-old house. And it just literally collapsed. That one wall. The back wall, there was always going to be that connection. So that back wall was always going to come down. So right now it looks like there's 2 walls gone, but it was really just the one wall. The other walls are all still standing. So the only thing that literally changed was that one wall fell down. And I guess in addition to that, I guess it kind of, hurts to sit there and hear about, this town is, full of history and everything like that. Is we love that. We love that about this. My husband has 2 aunts that have lived here for 40, 50 years. We moved here because of that. We love this town. We wanted to move here because of that. And we truly believe that we didn't take away, I guess, the historic value from this house, because in bringing down, the drywall, and all, the nastiness that was in old house, a lot of things were discovered, that there's a ton of work that had been done on this house in 100 years that we didn't do. So I don't think that was pictured, or it kind of is right here. All of these brand new studs right there, which is the front portion of the house that's, being talked about, making sure that it's, upheld, whatever the integrity of it, all of that was already done. Every single thing of those brand new studs was already done. All of that brand new wood was done. We only added right here, this wall that fell. And then that wall was always going to be there regardless of the old plans that were approved back in June. So up there, all of those new studs, brand new studs that were, put in within 10 years. We've only lived there for 3 years. The roof shingles, brand new. The windows, brand new. There's footers that have been, reinforced over the time, new. And so it just, again, it hurts to kind of hear that we as the owners, in our kind of, lack of effort in demolition, right? Like strip this house of its historic value. But to be honest, like, it's not true. Aside from one wall falling down, the whole house is exactly as it was. So somebody else has done that, right? We've only lived there for 3 years. So I guess I just wanted to start off by saying that we never wanted to do that. And again, like, essentially nothing is changing other than the wall coming down and, us wanting to raise the roof to make it livable. The look was always going to be the same. The siding was always going to stay the same. We submitted paint samples when we were approved in June. Those were going to stay the same. And so I guess I just want to reiterate that really everything was exactly the same, aside from, the one wall falling that was out of our control because of, termite damage. So I guess I just want to start off by saying that. For anybody that's sitting here, and I wouldn't like to hear that either, right? It's like, you live in a historic town and you love the character of it for certain reasons. And so to sit there and kind of hear that, I think that's not true. It's not right. Aside from that, I guess mostly our main kind of question here is, it's been a very long, drawn out process. It's been extremely unprofessional. I feel like there's been a lot of kind of intentional harassment, honestly. We happen to live next door to someone that's on the historic board, that it just feels like it's right there. We have continually asked for information. I mean, up until tonight, right? Emails over and over again about what's needed of us. What do you need? What time do you need us to be there? And I get an email at 5:15 that says, you guys are the first thing on the agenda, when everything that I have has been 6 o'clock, and I'm getting an email at 5:15, which means that it's already started. It's already been talked about. That's not right. Just for the good of the order, whether that's for this or not, I just feel like that needs to be said. It's been really hard to live here. It's, I feel like, again, kind of going back to like the value of the town, you have people here that are really wanting to live here. We're wanting to connect our houses to make a house for our family, raise our son here. And I just don't feel like we've been treated with the respect of wanting to have people in this town that actually care, right? I mean, when we moved in, we had, there had been tons of renters. They'd ruined the house over and over for years and years. We came right in, started to completely redo the backyard. We've put a lot of time and effort. We just want to continue doing that. And so I feel like ultimately the way that we've been treated up until this point has been really frustrating, because we're really just trying to add value to this town and not have, you know, the ugliest house on the street, which is what our house is right now. And we just want to love it back up. So I just want to say that as well. And lastly, I guess my biggest concern is how much this new sewer, cost will be. I believe it's going to include, civil engineer. We don't have that in the budget. We're already, months, delayed. We don't have this money. What's that going to cost? It does connect with our neighbor's house. Are both of us kind of being required to tie in and kind of redo our sewer? I guess is my main question. Because this is all new to us. Again, this was just something that was told to us at, I can pull up the email, 4 o'clock, 3:50. That was brought up to us today. So haven't known that, didn't think that was going to ever be a thing, never was, again, we were approved in June and nothing's changed other than the one wall. What does that cost, right? Is someone else going to have to do that? Is everybody in the town that has, funky sewers, going to have to redo their sewer? Or is it just all of a sudden, again, targeted at us because we reopen this because of the one wall, and now, we're required to do this. I guess that's at this point, I just want to move forward. I want to close at my house before it starts raining. And what does that cost? I don't know if I need to sit here or stand here. You guys can respond, I guess, as I sit down.
Staff, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just real briefly about the sewer. Let me get the right. There is a provision in the ordinance that allows the city engineer to work with the owner regarding an existing sewer system. And so it is a requirement, but there's also a sort of an escape clause, if you will. The owner can work with the city engineer to determine when and if that lateral needs to be redirected to 3rd Street. The adjacent owner is already connected to 3rd Street. This is something that the city is doing overall to correct a historical problem with the way the sewer laterals work. And it's an opportunity, but then there's also this particular code, and that particular condition of approval does include reference to that particular code provision that allows the owner to work with the city engineer on an alternative if that's workable.
Comments from our commissioners? Or any other public comments? Sorry.
I just want to reiterate what I said in the earlier meeting, that we have lovely neighbors. We really like them. They are young. They've got a lovely little child who's about 1.5 years now, and they have a lot on their plate. So I'll start with talking about sewers. I did mention to Brian that our sewers are connected together. They're like 5 houses on one sewer. What we do is we do not throw paper in our sewer. We use the Mexican system. We throw it in a basket next to our toilet. When there were prior tenants living in your house, there were issues, and we had a lot of backups that we had to pay for. And we have not connected to 3rd Street. But we did get an estimate to have that done. In any event, the only thing that I wanted to talk about their plans, and I think it might be an error, is if you look at the left side, which is the side facing our house, it shows stucco. And I don't think that was intended. I think, there's siding there now, and I assume there will be siding in the future. So that was the only thing that is of concern to me, is that, it not be stucco, but that it be siding.
Yes, Brian, I thought you said the whole thing was siding.
It should be.
I think it's an error on the plan, possibly.
Got it.
And then I
Yeah.
do think it's important to maintain the historic facade. We have a really cool block with a whole eclectic mix of historic homes. From our house actually is 1860, theirs is 1907. We've got bungalows, we've got Victorians, four squares, we've got the Spanish eclectic. It's a really, really nice block. So that's all I have to say. I mean, I don't know. I hope we still have a good relationship. I think they're lovely people. And I don't think we've ever done anything to hurt them or upset them, hopefully, and that we can continue to be good neighbors like we have been. Thank you.
Yeah. Carrie, how much was the estimate you got? How much was that for?
It was A&N Plumbing, and it was $7,000.
Is that feet?
Seven,
Oh.
7,000
And that was to connect straight from your house.
to the, when the city redid the street in front of our houses in that block, and they put in the laterals and did not charge us. So it's there to be connected up to. But you need to get it from your property to the clean out in the sidewalk.
All right, any comments from the public? Is that, yeah. I'd like to have. Any,
We have Zoom.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
No worries.
Okay, you have 3 minutes. Elizabeth Jerks.
Thank you. This is Betsy Dirks, former supervisor for San Benito County District 1. I just wanted to speak on behalf of the owners of the home. I've known Cassie now for a couple of years. We've worked together very professionally, and I've always found her to be reasonable. And as I discovered she lived in San Juan Bautista, she shared with me some of the things that have been going on. And so I know that they've been a little bit frustrated, and I just want to point out that even the person in the building department, I believe his name is Brian, commented that they want to keep the integrity of the house, the historical appearance of it. In all my conversations with her regarding this subject, they've maintained that. And I do think that in the experience that I had as a county supervisor, and kind of looking at some of these issues that came up with individual, landowners, and different things, I do feel that I think the modern monitoring plan is fine. I know they already have an architect, so I don't want to speak obviously for Cassie, but I feel like that they would be amenable to that. But I do feel that the terms of condition for the sewer system, quite frankly, feels a little bit like extortion, especially if you're not making other people on the street do this at the same time. And $7,000 for a young family is a lot of money. I think most of you on the commission there can remember a time when you had a young family and they're already putting themselves out there. It's already been delayed. I feel like with what I believe it's Brian who said that maybe there's a way that they can work it out with the city regarding the code. But to get an email at 3:50 in the afternoon, 2 hours before they're supposed to even talk about this. They haven't even had time to consider it. They both just got home from work, and her husband can't be there because he's watching their son right now, who's like 1. And so I really feel that this piece of it should be something that the commissioners consider, because I don't feel it's fair. And quite frankly, I've never seen anything like this, at the very last moment being added as a condition when the owners themselves have had no time to consider it or look at it or even look to see if it's something they could afford to do. So I really hope that you guys look at that piece of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on Zoom? Okay, any comments in chambers?
Just one.
And that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, sorry. Commissioner comments.
No comments at this time. Thank you.
And then, Dan, do you want to go or do you want me to go? For I sympathize. I see where you're coming from. And I can kind of understand how something like this could happen. But there, you know, it's just sad to see that this building lost its integrity. So the only thing for me is that Brian, is there anything that we can do to help them with this sewer situation so that it's just an easier process so that they can just get a roof over their head and just get going, since it is the winter months are coming and they have a kid and we got to do whatever it takes to kind of just help these guys out.
I think I explained, and maybe it didn't resonate with everyone, that there is a provision referenced in the condition that allows the city engineer to utilize this particular code section to get some relief from the code requirement. And so if the city engineer feels that the existing sewer situation there is adequate, then they can make a decision to not require the connection to 3rd Street.
Okay.
Otherwise, that connection seems to be a code requirement, but you know, there is this provision here that allows this arrangement between the engineer and the owner based on the circumstances of the individual property.
Got it. And then is this and again, and all this was triggered because this is now being considered a new like build, a new
Correct.
build or everything.
Right.
So that's what triggered it.
Yeah, this is considered a new project.
Got it.
As I explained before, there are advantages and disadvantages to having this considered a new project. The advantage is that months and months of environmental review is being avoided. So we're talking about timing here and seasonality. This project would not be able to go forward for a very long time if we did not consider it a new project.
Okay.
Are these added conditions in our packet?
This particular engineering condition of approval is the one on the screen is not in your packet.
It kind of needs to be. It'd be nice to have, can we get a printout of that? It needs to be, any form of motion needs to be amended.
Well, this is part of the record here we're recording this on Zoom, so it is part of the record.
I would like to have a printout of that so I can read it more quickly.
And then another comment for me would just be to the applicant. I'm sorry, you know, this is coming off as a frustrating process. And I hear you. I will make sure that we work with our staff to make sure that you're getting that support that you need while you're going through this process. And we try to make it easy on you Whether that means improving our communication with you and following up a little better. Other than that, I'm sure Dan has some other comments in regards to, this build out.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I'm just trying to get my head around the amended conditions of approval that were not in the packet. For review and approval in writing. So let's just read this together. Where's the owner? Have you seen this yet?
350.
Huh?
At 350.
This was emailed to you at 3:50?
Yeah.
Well, you were ahead of me. I didn't see it until just now.
My son, so I mean, we're right in
Sure.
between copies of our doctor.
Yeah, so this is the sewer issue. I think that's like an issue that's standing out a little bit right now.
Sure. Well, it's just like, is it required? Is everyone?
Let's-
Yeah, would you mind coming up to the podium just so that people on Zoom can hear you?
Yeah, sorry, I mean, is it required, right, ultimately, and
Let's hold on, let's read it
yeah,
together.
sure.
Prior to issuance of you can step there. Prior to issuance of a building grading permit, unless otherwise determined by the city engineer pursuant to municipal code section 59325, existing building sewers. The applicant shall submit plans designed by a licensed civil engineer for review and approval in writing by the city engineer and public works director, showing abandonment of the connection to a sewer lateral located on adjacent property to the south, and providing a new sewer lateral connection directly connected to the existing cleanout on 3rd Street serving the property. Any terminations and new connections shall be inspected for conformance with city standards to the satisfaction of the public works director. Fair enough, certificate of occupancy. So that says thou shall must do this sewer thing. This doesn't say, well, why don't you guys get together at Mission Cafe and have a cup of coffee and talk about it. This says prior to issuance of a building or grading permit, you must connect to 3rd Street. And Keller says that's gonna cost you about $7,000. So how does that grab you?
Well, no, and I guess like Elizabeth had brought up, right, is everybody being required to do that? Our own neighbors who are also connected to it, it sounds like there's other houses that are connected to it. I mean, like, it's things like this, right? Like, we find this out at 3:50. We've been talking about this for months, right? I think we got red tagged in September. It's November. Never was this brought up. Nothing. I mean, nothing. 3:50. Are we the only ones required to do this?
Apparently. And how many are there, Kara? 4?
Well, there are 5 units.
That all hook into one?
And I mean, even honestly, like the fact that that's not even, this isn't to you, but you guys don't even know this, right? It's kind of like, this is just knowledge that kind of comes, where did it come from, right? It sounds like there was a comment that was made that said these sewer lines are connected, and all of a sudden there's something that's, put onto us. And that's how the entire process has been is, someone makes a comment to someone and it's maybe behind closed doors, maybe it was meant that way, or maybe it wasn't. And all of a sudden, now we have this new, this new thing. Last week, it was that we are required to have sprinklers in our house. Never heard of that. And that was a back and forth. It was, yes, you are. Someone said, no, you aren't. It was, call the fire chief, call this other person, all over the place. We're making plans to see if we need fire sprinklers. We have someone that's going to come out. We're ready to pay the money, and we're kind of just feeling like, no, this is not right. Like, why, right? Ultimately, it's decided. We spoke directly to Charlie, who I guess is, in charge of fire, and he tells, our architect that it's not required. And the reason why is because we're connecting the house, right? And the whole thing was that it was triggered because more than 50% or whatever has been, changed or whatever. But when you connect the houses, that's not true. And so if you're looking at an entire structure that eventually will be all one house, it's not more than 50%. So it doesn't trigger fire sprinklers. And architect speaks to Charlie and he says, yeah, no, they don't need them. But here we are, right? It's another thing. You guys are gonna need fire sprinklers. We're ready to drop however much for the plans and.
We're not talking about sprinklers.
No, I know. I guess just in terms of the process, it's like, this is another thing that's just like I guess it sounds like we're required to do it, but like, are we? Fire sprinklers were required to be done last week. It could have been written like this, and then all of a sudden Charlie says no. So here it is, another one saying we're required to do it because someone had mentioned that there's a bunch of people on the same sewer line and we're the ones that have to pay the price for this.
Got it.
Do we have that section 59325 available anywhere easily? See what that says? This is $7,000 swing for these.
Yeah,
folks.
Brian, I was also gonna ask you, have you seen this happen with another property that's being reconstructed or a new build similar to this? I am a little, just a tad concerned that this does come off as, a little bit subjective, and I just want to make sure we're being careful and making sure that, we're
Well, my understanding from the city engineer is that it's a code requirement.
got it.
So I can't evaluate whether the city engineer is correct or not. All I can do is really stipulate the condition of approval that city engineer felt was appropriate for new construction. So I think for any new construction, the city would require that. And we have other projects. We have one on Monterey Street, for example, that shared a storm drain or shared a water line crossing the property, and that property owner was required to reroute those lines and prior to construction. So I think what happens here is that, we have a project that wasn't a new construction, but then it seemed as it progressed to be new construction based on the magnitude of the change being proposed. And so I think city staff is it doesn't seem like we're trying to accommodate the owner, but in fact, if you heard the story about the sprinklers, that is staff trying to figure out really what is appropriate here, and trying to come up with the right answer. I think that it's a bit of a moving target in this case. We're dealing with one kind of project when the project was first approved, and then as construction progressed, we're dealing with something entirely different. One that's more significant and has more significant change. So, we're trying to, accommodate the owner and also apply the right code sections for the circumstance that we've got in front of us. And that's why I think that this particular section here, if it's a code requirement that the owner connect to the street, then it's a code requirement. If there is a provision in the code that allows the city engineer to provide some relief, that is in the code, not up to the discretion of the commission to alter the way that code reads or the application of the code. That's up to the city engineer and the city manager to make that call. And so my recommendation is that the condition be applied, but then the relief valve that's in that particular section may provide some relief, and that's the best we can do at this point. Then that would be my recommendation, even though it's the 11th hour condition of approval based on information that we got. Like I said, we're doing the best we can to make sure that the project complies with codes that currently exist.
Okay, and there's no other way, no other permit that could be issued or another approach to this where we can somehow alleviate some of this.
Well, as I said before, this particular code section referenced in the condition does provide some relief, and I understand. I'm looking at Commissioner DeVries. He may have the language there for this particular section right in front of him. So maybe you read that and you can see that it does provide some relief. But this is up to the city engineer to administer, not up to the planning commission to administer.
Got it.
I mean, I guess I feel like you guys need time to look at the code and so do we, right? Because you guys didn't get it in a packet before the meeting, you didn't have it printed out. This is all coming literally today, hours before, and if this is part of code requirement, we've known this, right? And this was brought to us today, you guys, right now, in real time. How even could that be considered for a meeting like this? And I'm hesitant to even say that because I feel like then what's happened in the past is it gets tabled and it'll be put on the December meeting, right? And there goes another month, right? So I'm hesitant to say that, but at the same time, I just feel like, how is that even possible? And yet again, it feels like another direct way, retaliation, harassment, another way, right? It's brought up at 3:50 because we won't have time to review this. We're going to have to look at this again in December. And there goes another month, which happened the entire first time that we had this project finally approved in June. And here we are again, it's about to be December. And so I just feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because right now, no, I don't want you guys to, have to say right now whether this is or isn't, because you don't have the information. But also, I don't want to wait any longer, right? But I also don't have $7,000, so I don't know. And again, why was this brought up just today? And it feels like because my neighbor happens to be on that same thing, right? And happens to have this knowledge that happens to be shared, all of a sudden is applied to this house. That is what has been the theme for this entire house. Something happens, someone is told, and all of a sudden we are the ones that are required to do it. I don't know how that's possible.
Understood. Yeah. I got it. I got your message loud and clear. Yeah, again, I commend you for trying to at least keep everything else intact and I get it. So yeah, any Commissioner DeVries comments?
Yes, I think we would all do ourselves a favor to step back for a minute and look at where we are with this thing. We have an added condition of approval to the list of conditions of approval provided to us in our packet that essentially, and as based upon the report from the assistant city manager, state that's, and I think he even said it's a code requirement that they hook up to the city sewer. And the citation is section 59325 of the San Juan Municipal Code. And so therefore, I'm not trying to be a city attorney or an engineer, but if we're being asked to add this condition of approval to this woman and her family based upon this code section, I for one would like to see the code section. I'd like to see the basis for that. I have the code section and I don't think it says anything close to that. It says 59325 existing building sewers. It's one sentence. Existing building sewers may be used in connection with new improvements in construction when, on examination and test by the city manager, the same are found to meet all the requirements of this chapter. Existing building sewers may be used in connection with new improvements. Okay, they may be or they may not be. It doesn't say thou shall do anything. So for those reasons, I do not support this added condition of approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And then regardless of whether you want to add this condition or not, if it's a code requirement, then it still applies.
I mean, I would.
You don't have the
Yeah.
ability to not apply a code
No.
section that otherwise applies. So I appreciate that this alleviates the issue this evening. But on the other hand,
You need to follow code.
You need to follow code,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the law is the law.
Yeah.
Right.
And you may, as 59325 says, existing building sewers may be used.
Correct. And the city engineer and the city manager
Will
will
make that
interpret the
call.
code and apply the code the way it should be applied. And if they need to consult with the city attorney, they will do that. Yes, I think it's okay not to apply the condition of approval, because if it's there in the code and it does apply, it will be applied unless otherwise determined through this process that you just read into the record. So like I said, there is a process for the owner to work with the city engineer to determine whether this should be connected to Third Street or not. And that's why that particular sentence is included in the condition of approval.
And if we were to recommend not to put this in the conditional use permit and then consult our city attorney and look into it, can we do that? Like, can we just say, hey, we're gonna.
Staff will do that.
Staff will do that, yeah,
Yeah.
can we say, can
That's
we?
the city
move-
manager's job.
Got it, can we move that and just say, hey, we're not gonna add it right now, and
Yeah.
then maybe they look into it. And that hopefully helps you move along.
And add it, and what, add it later?
Well, I mean, we would have to talk to the attorney. I mean, obviously, you're telling me you're reading it as a different.
No, I'm just asking, your question's a procedural one and you're not.
No, you wouldn't add it later. You would just simply not include it in the conditions of approval.
Conditional, yeah.
And then if it applies, if it applies, it applies. And like I said, the owner will work with the city engineer and city manager as needed to determine whether or not a connection to Third Street is required. And it has nothing to do with, and really technically, this is a problem that we get into when we put code requirements into conditions of approval, because it makes it seem as though it's discretionary when it really isn't. And so, you know, I mean, we're advising the applicant, this code section exists because it's knowledge that we have. So
Where's the code section that says that a sewer connection to Third Street for this residence is required? Where's that code section?
it's in this particular section. But I don't,
59325? No, it's not.
I don't want to debate the code application here. It's not appropriate. And so what will happen is that the owner doesn't really want to have this condition apply. We'll work with the owner through the city engineer and city manager as needed, consult the city attorney, and then we'll make a decision.
Okay.
And it really has nothing to do with whether the planning commission feels it's appropriate or not.
All right then, well,
My recommendation would be
Yes.
that you just simply not apply the condition.
okay, I think we're gonna go for that, and then man.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is honestly like story of this whole project,
Yeah.
honestly dealing with this. I guess like, because that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like literally trying to process it. I guess I'm hoping what this means is that the city attorney is going to look at it. Is that what I'm hearing? Number one, and number two, kind of like who can follow up on that? Because I'll be honest, like again, in working with the office, not with you guys, it seems like you guys have been pretty receptive and understandable. And working with the office, we have not had very much luck and faith. And so honestly, I'm just kind of like, so if the city attorney maybe does look at it, who's following up with it? That could take more months. Like who can kind of keep this going and have some sort of like accountability that the city attorney is going to look at this, number one, and number two, that will get hopefully handled soon.
Well, what I'm suggesting here is that they're gonna submit an application for a building permit, which hasn't been issued yet. The stop work has to be removed. Plan check has to occur for the new plans. That whole process will involve a conversation with city engineer. And then the city engineer and the owner will come to terms regarding what is required. And then if there's disagreement there, it can go further to the city manager. And then I'm sure people will consult as needed with the city attorney. And so that's something that, sort of an ordinary process that will follow.
Got it.
But all of this will be washed through the plan check process.
Okay, and is there any way, just one last comment here from me, is there any way just to kind of make sure we sit down with the applicant, maybe lay out a list of timelines and, when we're gonna follow up, just to make sure that we ease the frustrations, between, our city staff and just to make her experience a little easier.
Well, I think that when the applicant submits plans for plan check, the property owner submits plans for plan check, there's an expectation regarding turnaround
Okay.
time for plan check. That's a schedule that we have. And so there's a time period to turn around. I think it's less than a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And then if it has to come back for another review, there's another week there. So it's not very long in terms of,
Is it, but is the plans
Coordination.
that are being submitted, do those need to include this new sewer line, right? Because we have been working on plans because there's not very much that has changed from the first time. We have them basically ready to submit so that we can get going. But does that include this? Because that changes things, right? Then that means our plans need to include this brand new thing.
it may.
No, it's a yes or a no, like that, like.
If you read the language, the city engineer will work with you to determine whether or not it's necessary for your sewer lateral to connect to Third Street.
Before or after we submit our plans?
Will you submit your plans, and if you don't show any change and the city engineer comments on those plans, then he will note that in his comments on your plans that he would like to see you connect to Third Street.
So we submit them, we will wait our 10 days for review, which we've been told, and then we'll get these notes back that are gonna say, go ahead and wait again and resubmit them again.
Or you can talk with the city engineer ahead of time. That's okay too.
Okay, I mean, like, am I? Okay, God, like, seriously, I'm so glad, honestly, that I have this time to at least have people that are witnessing what we've experienced since January of last year, okay? January to June, and now here we are again, almost in December. It is atrocious, the people that are working here. I'm so sorry, but who would want to live here and deal with this and work with a house and trying to have that? There's no answers. Even in this meeting alone, there are no answers. Like, best case scenario after today was going to be hopefully starting in December. That was best case scenario. Now it's looking at what, Brian? What is it looking like again? You know, like, I don't understand.
All right, so here's what we're gonna we have to kind of move this agenda along. I understand where you're coming from. We're gonna take an action. I believe this is an action item, right? I don't know about our commissioners here. I would love to see us just remove that conditional use or this particular piece. It's not in there, so okay, let's make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the planning commission pass resolution number 2023 whatever it is. Approving a site plan and design review permit to remodel and connect an existing 747 square foot single family home formerly designated as historic resource to an existing 504 square foot accessory dwelling unit on property known as 701 Third Street with the findings and conditions of approval as set forth in the staff report and but specifically in the staff report, not those which we were provided with on screen tonight.
All right, with a all right, perfect. With a motion from Commissioner DeVries and a second from Commissioner Medeiros. Clerk, can I get a roll call? Sorry, I'm just not on here today.
Commissioner DeVries,
Yes.
Commissioner Maderos,
Yes.
Chair Aranda,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, moving on to wow, I'm surprised. Okay, general public comments. This is a time for general public comments on items that are not on the agenda under the city subject matter jurisdiction. The planning commission will not be engaging, but if you have anything that requires follow-up, staff will get back to you. Public comments generally are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The chair may further limit the time for public comments depending on the agenda schedule. If you are attending in person or wish to make a public comment, please fill out a speaker card and state your name for the record. Any public comments in Zoom?
Seeing no hands raised, Chair.
Thank you. Any publics here in chambers?
And no speaker cards received.
Perfect. All right, cool. So we will move on to our consent items, and that is to approve the affidavit posting agenda. And approve the special meeting minutes of September 12th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second.
With a motion from Commissioner Medeiros and a second from Commissioner DeVries, can I get a roll call?
Commissioner DeBreeze,
Yes.
Commissioner Maderos.
Yes.
Chair Aranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then moving on to public hearing, considering amendment to site and design review permit number DR 2014-11 and CUP 24-11, fuel station convenience store and quick serve restaurant located at 408 San Juan Hollister Road in the city of San Juan Bautista, APN 002-52-012. In the city of San Juan Bautista, filed by Fred R. Avila on behalf of SJB Alameda Enterprises. And this is continued from October 3rd of 2020. Staff, is there a report?
Yeah, just give me a second here.
No worries, thank you.
Okay, so this is back before the commission. I'm going to not really cover all of the design issues that exist with this project at this point. You've got some material in front of you that were just handed out by the applicant this evening. And then we have structured some conditions of approval based on remember previously in October, the applicant did not have complete plans prepared. And so the commission continued this item to enable the applicant to come back with complete plans. They are more or less complete based on the our review of what is required by the conditions of approval that were applied back in 2016. So some of the project, most of the project for the buildings has been ironed out with respect to design. There are still some empty spaces that we think need attention. And then there's some elements that need to be submitted. There are perimeter walls, there's a trash enclosure. There's some architectural treatments needed to some of the elevations that haven't currently been provided. Maybe the applicant has a presentation this evening that will address some of these issues. We haven't seen it, so we don't know whether this is the case. And because of that, what we're asking in the conditions of approval is that these items that are not included in the staff's review when the staff report was completed come back to the commission for approval. Notwithstanding the overall improvement to the site and building design that the applicant has submitted, which I think is pretty substantial and pretty substantial improvement, there's still some things that need to be done. So, for example, what we want is a complete sign program. That's a code requirement that the applicant submit a sign program for projects like this. So while we do have some signs that are in the packet, we have some signs that we don't have all of them. So we don't have all the building signs. We have a monument sign that the commission may not like. The staff's not recommending that the commission approve that monument design because it's incompatible with the overall design of the buildings. And so that would need to come back. And then when the formula retail tenants are identified, a conditional use permit needs to be submitted for the formula retail portion of the project, and then the sign program will come along with that, I'm assuming. So, the conditions of approval, talk about trash enclosures and perimeter walls and screening of pertinent equipment. These details need to be submitted for a planning commission review. It's seems like a lot of detail for the planning commission to look at, but our opinion is that it's better to have the commission to have a complete, relatively complete design that you've approved as part of the site and design review permit, even though it requires a little extra effort on the part of the applicants to get there. What we've said here is that we don't want a reader board in the monument sign. We don't want a pole sign as part of this project. That's in your condition number 2. The applicant is going to propose a monument sign. The code requires that the monument be only 10 square feet, which is pretty small, unless state law requires a larger sign to accommodate letters that are required by state law for pricing signs, and that's going to control the actual size of the monument. We're not required to have a reader board as part of the monument sign, for example. And the overall architectural design is not something that state law addresses either. Only exposure to the public of those prices is regulated, and then the size of the prices. So we're going to get something that complies with state law, that has some architectural relevance to the overall design of the buildings. Here you see in condition number 3, these elements were not submitted with this particular packet. And so these things need to come back to the commission. While an attempt was made to do 360-degree design for all the elevations, there is 1 or 2 of these elevations that need further work. So those will have to come back. And then the overall site plan needs to be submitted for review by the city engineer for on-site circulation. And then one of the conditions of approval in the prior 2016 resolutions require that a noise attenuation study be submitted. There is a fairly definite set of conditions that address noise because of the adjacent land uses. And the applicant can maintain that they're in compliance, but they need to submit a design by acoustical engineer that demonstrates compliance with those conditions. And that means that another study needs to be submitted to verify compliance with those conditions. So that's a little unfortunate, but it's required by the previous resolution. Then the applicant hasn't submitted a detailed landscape plan yet. I think given the prominence of the site, it's going to be really important for the commission to look at the overall landscape that's proposed to make sure that it's something that the city will treasure on into the future at this important gateway property. What we'd like to see for stormwater management is retention on the site, consistent with what Regional Water Quality Control Board requires. This is not a condition of approval in the previous resolutions, and so we added it because it's a new consideration. And this is being treated as a new project, by the way, because it's a redesign of the previous project that was slightly larger. So it is a new project. The canopy is different. You'll recognize that when the applicant does his video and from the material submitted. And so what we'd like to do is we would like to make sure the canopy is consistent with the rest of the buildings in terms of the overall design. Emphasis is on the Monterey style overall. And then our code requires a conditional use permit for Formula Retail. The applicants deleted the car wash. That wasn't really an issue, except for potential noise issue, but also deleted a Formula Retail food service inside. That's gone now, so that's not an issue. Let's see, so and that's the extent of the conditions, and all the other conditions of approval, which I won't go through because they're pretty extensive, adopted in 2016. Those conditions apply to this project unless they're obviated by the design, which is sometimes does occur. So that really covers the staff report and the conditions of approval. Instead of having me go through the designs that were submitted, I think it's appropriate that the applicant have an opportunity to cover that with you so that they have an opportunity to do what they didn't have an opportunity to do last hearing. So that concludes the staff report.
Thank you. All right, so I guess, yeah, is the applicant here to please come up to the podium and let's hear it out.
Okay.
Welcome.
We have
Do you want me to turn on the video?
turn on the video, please.
Okay, all right. What's happening? Oh, are you doing that, Liz? Okay, I'll do it.
There are several things that have been modified since our last meeting on this project. We now show the
My mouse is not working. Up here. Okay. All right, Fred. Tell me when. Yeah, let me share just a second here. Oops. So I'm going to go back to the beginning and if I can.
this moves through pretty quickly. There's the monument sign on the corner right there. It has been modified. It sits up with a stone below it just to match the rest, or a tile below it just to match the rest of the building and the building elements. And then it has a stucco top with a concrete tile roof. The four patches there are where the signs would go, and they would just be pricing signs and signs for the store and the future retail space. So that's what would go there. This is the exit coming out. The entrance coming in, the south entrance is here. It'll take you through. If you notice that the masonry wall along that south property line, you have columns. They're spaced about 16 feet apart, and then there is trellis work between every other one, just to give it some, just to soften it up.
How tall is it?
6 feet.
6 feet tall?
Yeah, it's a 6 foot block. Yes, that's correct. And the hotel's just south of it there.
The condition of approval in 2016 resolutions specify the height of the perimeter walls.
That's it.
Yeah.
As you go back, going the other direction, you can see because what that path right there is the path of travel from that's the ADA path of travel from the public right of way to the building that has to maintain a 2% slope. As you go back, you have the actual store itself and landscape around it with accessible
entries at both the store and the retail space. This back corner, because it's hidden by the block wall, we didn't want to put a lot of, and there's on that side, there's cold boxes and storage rooms. We didn't want windows in there. Plus, between the wall and there, people can break into it easily. So rather than doing that, we use some trellis with some vines on that, on those walls. Just to give it some look there. As you go around, you'll notice that the masonry tile only go up. They're low. The back is now basically the same as the front, but once again, with no openings, because you're blocked off from a block wall back there, and it's just too easy for people to get back into the retail spaces in the stores. So it's kind of hidden back there. What we did is we added a bank of windows into that retail space. And then the other gable end, just to the left of it, has the same as the store frontage with the pulled out stucco and the outriggers. There's just up in that top left between the building and the trash enclosure, there is a concrete pad there. That is for the PG&E transformer. Okay, and then that is a masonry enclosed trash enclosure, so that you know, it's accessible to get into. And if you notice on the canopy, it pretty much matches the store elevation with the gable end. What's on top is we're required to have solar panels by state law.
Those are solar panels?
Well, so actually they'll drop down inside that.
I see.
So it's to try and hide them so you don't see them from the street. And then any signage for the gas station, which will be a 76, it would go on the end of that gable in that little signage area right there. The little signage areas are the ones that are kind of blocked out differently. We didn't have signs for them as of yet. We have the sign guys working on them, but that's actually where the signs would go. You can proceed on around, Brian. And then those are the Tesla charging stations along that wall there, or along that curb. So it's changed considerably, and we put a lot of time and effort into getting what the commission had requested previously, keeping it, but at the same time, trying to keep the cost in, trying to keep this thing in somewhat into a budget. We've already been, you know, it's been 8 months we've been coming here trying to get this thing worked out with delays and different things happening. So we wanted to get this, and there is some space on the roof for solar panels, but then again, you have roof penetration, so it's going to be it'll be you can't put a lot of them up there as you normally would. Any questions from the commission?
Yeah, that portion of the charging station.
I think you need to hit the green button.
That you're going to put, awesome. Oh.
Yeah, the woke me up there. No, that portion on the fuel station island, and where you're going to put the solar panels into. It looks like it's there's like a deep trough there.
It's not gonna be, it'll only be as deep as what the solar panel guys need.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So what we're looking at is, okay, the other thing too is why do you have to have it, the gable enclosed?
On which one?
On the island itself, the fuel station island. You know, you have the gable and the gable itself is enclosed all the way across.
Because those columns sit back further where those arches take place. So what we're trying to do with the gables was to give us room on the front end of that gable for signage.
Okay.
For
You-
branding.
on the front facets of that, so you can,
Yes.
on the gable portion.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm just thinking, why couldn't that be open beam station? That roofing itself. I mean, is it because of cost if you went that route? If it was just open beam
Well,
all the way through and still have a face where you can still put a sign there?
the thing is the rest of the structure is all enclosed,
Uh-huh.
you know, stucco type finishes. So we're starting to pull away from what we're doing with the rest of the theme.
Oh, I kind of gathered that,
Yeah.
yeah. But the gable slope of the roof, I mean, it's there, it's still gable,
Yeah.
you know. I'm just, when I look at it aesthetically, it just feels heavy. And the
Yeah.
other thing too, the archways that go into the stations themselves, what height is that from the gas pumps all the way up to where the arches go to the height of the arch?
The height at the top. Of
Yeah,
the
you can
arch.
see on this side, there's no arch. There is an arch going through the long way of the station itself.
Yeah, it just
But on the
goes-
side where the cars come in, there's an archway there too as well. What's the height of that?
Well, we'll always maintain at least like 14 feet. in
14
there.
feet?
Yeah, just
Okay,
because.
and that's adequate
any-
for
because of-
motorhomes and what have you?
Or any other type of vehicle that, you know, some of these guys raise them up, some of them drop them down. So,
Yeah.
you know, we try to avoid getting any damage done to the building. That's the reason you'll notice there's bollards at the ends of the
Yeah.
of the fuel islands.
You know, I just, if there's something about the island itself. If it was more open, I mean, that would be.
The only thing is if we open it
I don't know,
up-
I would like to see that happen if it was less expensive to do, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
one, it's.
Probably not.
Well, yeah, and that's usually all out of steel.
Yeah,
So it's just not, and then you have that portion where you have
mhm,
the solar panels,
yeah,
you know, it's not real workable.
you know,
And like I said, the big thing is we're trying to get the same theme as the
Mhm.
store itself.
and the other thing I bring to your attention, you probably know that there are roofing material that looks like tile, right?
Oh,
They are solar panels
yes,
that look like tile
Yeah.
roof,
yes.
you know, have we thought about putting that on there? And is that more expensive or cheaper?
No, it is quite a bit more expensive. So
Yeah.
that's the reason you try and do the flat solar panel, you know, the regular solar panels on the flat portions of the roof.
I just feel aesthetically, the island itself is just, it just looks like it's top heavy and I know you're trying to match the buildings aesthetically on the design going through. If you could rethink that and if it would save you some money, I'd like to see something that would look like that.
Okay.
So it's, you know.
Honestly, I think for me, you know, I respect that, you know, this is actually taking some time and, you know, it does cost to make these changes and put some time and energy into this, but I think what we're trying to get at here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner DeVries and Maderos, I want to move forward with this gas station. The thing here is I want it to be something special, something that this community is going to love, something that they're going to, you know, I want you guys to look back and be super proud of. And, just be, dang, this gas station like is one of a kind, just like this town is one of a kind. And it's at the entry of the town. And it's just, I don't think, for me personally, it's not meshing well. And I sympathize, or I understand where Commissioner Medeiros is coming. Yeah, it's just, I'm getting, as much as I know it's a Mediterranean revival style, I feel like that's just, it doesn't vibe right now with the town, especially at the entrance where you have the mill that's got that, you know, farm look style, and then you have the Leal Hotel that's got that nice like mission, I don't even know what you want to call that. And so I think I'm wanting to see a little more something more creative that makes it just blend really nicely at the entrance of town, where people drive by and they're like, wow, holy cow, that's something special. I think we talked about this our last meeting, and and I know there's still some work that needs to be done, and we don't have it all here. So I think me personally, I'm still having to review some more stuff. Commissioner DeVries, do you have anything?
Well, first of all, I want to commend you for your hard work. I can see the changes, and I think your computer animation was really helpful and really cool, and a lot went into that as well. And I think that your changes and your designs and everything that we're seeing here is absolutely beautiful for a gas station like this that would be in Fresno or Bakersfield or Redding or maybe Sacramento somewhere. I mean, it'd be exceptional for Sacramento. But as Chair Aranda was saying, the thing about San Juan Bautista, and as I mentioned, I think the last time we looked at the design of this thing, I think Windmill Market set a pretty high bar for design, because that's just a grocery store and a strip center. But yet it just fits so well. It's just iconic. It is truly one of a kind. Show me another grocery store and strip center that looks like Windmill Market. So if what you're saying is that you were kind of hoping for something as special on this corner, I agree with you 100%. Is this it? I don't think it is. Although it's a beautiful design. It's a beautiful design. I think Morgan Hill would buy this in a second. So would Gilroy, Hollister for sure. But for San Juan Bautista, I don't know that it quite meets the bar set by the Windmill Market design. And this is going to be catty corner from it. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but those are my initial thoughts. But again,
That's real good.
What's that?
I like that too as well. What you just said, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this looks like Hollister. It looks like Gilroy. It doesn't look. It's not. I'd like to see it more unique for San Juan. And I know we got the Mission look, and I know we got the wood, the ranch look, and what have you, with the windmill, what have you. They just don't. They don't harmonize. It doesn't seem the way things are right now at that particular intersection.
And I know that's got to be.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's.
Oh.
Yeah.
A lot of jurisdictions could win an award.
Why can't we find something for San Juan that
Yeah.
says, gee, I wish we had a place like that in our city. Let's do it like San Juan. Yeah.
We, last time we were here, it's like I heard the same thing, okay? Do you want us to do the barn look? I mean, that's what keeps getting thrown back at us every time we come in here. No matter what I do, that's all I hear. I'll let the owner.
Hi. Yeah, absolutely. Please come up.
Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Dalla. So, as the previous lady showed the frustration, I'm nothing less than a more frustrated guy up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have been misled by staff on this project. So we are spending 900,000 to bring the right turn lane in. We worked with Don Reynolds for almost a year and a half. And who is funding it? Dr. Dalla, not City of San Juan Bautista, right? So let's get that clear. Also, this is an approved project. We submitted the same project without any changes to building officials a year back. We got back that, hey, this code has been expired, update these sheets. And we said, okay, now we are doing update the whole sheets because the architect has been changed. That architect is not working anymore because that was Mr. Derwal's project. So we'll, have Fred look into it. Then we spoke with Brian. Brian said, you know what? Oh, car wash, no problem. This thing, no problem. Nobody told us anything. He said, oh, it's going to be quick turnaround. What is a quick turnaround? I'm leaving my patients at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, coming from Elgrove. Yes, Elgrove will buy this. I have built 5 gas stations in the last 2 years and way better looking than these. Because we have no direction from the staff. We get 4 o'clock email that we need this. Brian wants 360-degree view. We have submitted these pictures a week back. This is called 360-degree view. I don't know where 360-degree view is not there. So we have 2 options. We want to build what was in 2016, update the sheets, over, or does city wants to work with us? Simple. Because we can resubmit the same plans with updated sheets. This is a nice looking plan. And I agree with Commissioner David. Yes, this looks bulky to me. I'm spending money on this. I want something more nicer. The gas station I built in Galt got the best looking gas station award from 76. It's all glass, but we are not looking for that modern look. I agree. We are looking for an old style look. I don't care. I want to sell gas. Right? Do I want to make the city a good place, a corner? Of course. That's how the people are going to come in. We are spending $7-8 million on this project. If we spend another 200,000, it's not going to make a difference. But if we keep getting turnarounds, like every time we come here, oh, this is not what we want this thing, give us in writing. We want this. We worked with a historian, right? For 2 months. She keep on like, oh, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing. Okay, we don't want reader board on the sign. I agree. That's fine. We want a price sign. People see it. Weights and measures I have done it 5 times. Weights and measures have standards. I don't care. What did we do? We added a car wash for the community. Why we pulled it out? Because we see city is not receptive and not want to work with us, right? Starbucks wanted to come here. I spoke with the mayor personally. Starbucks ready to sign the lease and no Formula One. I canceled it. I said, go to hell. Jamba Juice wants to come. Kids doesn't want Jamba Juice, cancel it. Pizza Hut, cancel it. I said, you know what? Just open a convenience store and nobody can stop us because we can go back to the same plans and just build like that. But we are not getting any direction. How that lady was getting frustrated, the same frustration we have it because we are not getting any support from staff. Every time we do something, it's a turnaround. We have spent almost 400,000-500,000 since I took this project, and it's been 2 years. And what we heard is like, oh, Gilroy will buy this. But give us something, show us something that somebody doesn't have it. It's a great corner. This will make that corner again better, right? What else we can do? Either show us some pictures. Hey, Devin, we want something like this. I'll have my architect redesign it. But if we don't have any direction, which way we go? No way. So my thing is like we eliminated the key components. Like it's a freeway site. It's not just a city site. People are coming from Casa da Fruta. That's the nearest gas station or that Valero in the town. Who wants to go to that Valero and have the restrooms used? And that's the city's reputation. We are building something really nice up here with the wall all around for a safety, for noise. I knew the noise thing gonna come. Car wash, we eliminated it. But wouldn't it be easier? We added a high-speed diesel because I spoke with the mayor on the phone. She said, San Juan Bautista doesn't have any diesel. And we have a lot of farmers who wants to just come in, have high-speed diesel, and then just go. There are a lot of construction workers. And ultimately, we are not building a hotel here. We are building a gas station. And how good we can make a gas station, I don't know. City doesn't want any retail business to come. How are we gonna pay our mortgages? We are already funding the right-hand lane for them. So now, if we can't do any business, and then we keep on doing it, what is our plan? So Fred, you tell me, where should I go now? Like, should I keep doing this every month? Or should we go back to the plans which were approved in 2016 and it's already approved plans, right? And just copy paste? Done. So I just need direction.
Thank you. Yeah, I just,
Can I say just a few
Yeah,
things
absolutely.
about direction?
yes.
So we did, and I understand, this has taken a while to get to this point. And we did ask, we did read our design guidelines that we have for commercial development. Our design guidelines don't specify a particular style. They say San Juan Bautista has no particular style. But there are different styles represented in the community. And for commercial projects, the design guidelines suggest that Mediterranean Revival, Monterey Revival style is appropriate. And so our direction to the developer is to look at that particular style and do the best you can to provide a Mediterranean Revival profile for this building. And there are certain elements that Mediterranean design profile would like to see: the arched windows. What happened to the video? Yes, please. So some of the design elements are reflective of this particular style. You've got the tile, you have the arched windows, you have this great entry that's been proposed, you have these design features on the exterior facade, you have the overall roof profile. And yes, it does look a bit bulky. It's not a huge building. So maybe some of these elements can be made smaller, but on the other hand, what we're asking is that of the applicant is that you look at the Monterey style and Mediterranean Revival, and you provide the best example of Mediterranean Revival in a commercial building that you can. And so if there's more that can be done to exemplify the Mediterranean Revival style, then I think it would be appropriate to ask the applicant to do more. We're not architects. We're not designers. We don't have in the city, we don't have a way to tell an applicant that they need to do more of a certain thing or less of a certain thing. We can only say, we're just not happy with the way it looks. But is that really good direction? The only thing that we have to direct applicants is our guidelines. That's the only thing that we have. And so as staff, that's what we try to do. And so what we did was we provided a menu of options for Mediterranean style buildings for the applicant to look at, to see, okay, well, maybe you incorporate some of these elements, that's what you need to do. So maybe some of the more bulky elements can be modified. What I think is appropriate here is for, if you want to have good design, that we not do it on the fly, that we not give applicants general direction that can't be interpreted very easily. But that we say, here are the elements that we think are important, which is what we try to do. So maybe what we need to do here is say, here are some of the elements of these buildings that we think need to be modified to create a better look. And the best that we can do is to work with the applicant's architect to try to refine what's being proposed to create a better Mediterranean revival approach. Now, you can say you don't want Mediterranean revival, but that's not what our design guidelines say. Our design guidelines say you don't have a style, you have several kinds of things, and Mediterranean revival for commercial buildings is entirely appropriate. And so otherwise, we're making stuff up.
Got it. Thank you.
1 second, here's the other
Yeah.
thing, in every jurisdiction that I work with, I send elevation site plans and floor plans into planning. Planning turns around and gives me red marks as far as what they don't like, okay? They work directly with me. I'll go down and I'll meet with them and we'll mark things up. Okay?
Because
So,
that's
and they're not architects either, but they work back and forth with us so that we don't come in and have to do it 5 times.
Got it. Makes sense.
So there's just, you know that this project has been going over 10 years. It has been to a litigation and it has been to a lot of pushbacks, and we all know the history of it, right? So I'm at this point that I'm like, I could have bring so many good things to this project, but I'm not, honestly. Because being a developer, you need to cities, acceptance as well. Right, right turn lane alone is costing us $1 million, and which we're gonna get maybe in 20 years back from the city, right? So Formula Retail cannot come here. Yes, agree. No franchisees, nobody wants Starbucks here, nobody wants any of those. I said, you know what, cancel it. I was even talking to Fred, you know what? Just do the C-store. We don't even want retail next to it. Why do we want retail? I'm not gonna lease it to somebody, right? Because the city is not, doesn't want, because yes, I agree about the historic landmark of the city, but this is also a freeway site, which is a need-based convenience store. People go to gas stations not looking for a historic point of view. They go to a gas station because they are in need of a gas station. Plus, they have electric charger, which is Tesla, which we have a community for farmers who need a high-speed diesel. Valero here doesn't have a high-speed diesel. The nearest they have to go to either a Gilroy, 101, or Casa de Fruta. And this is not a regular pump, it's a high speed, so that motorhomes can come and they can pump the fuel faster rather than being in there. So I did try my level best. He is doing it. If we get a guideline from you guys, and if we can send this and you want, we want to make this less bulky, we can do it. But we really want to see city's commitment, because we get last minute emails from the staff. Hey, you need this, and then we are like, okay. First, they make it very easy. Like, hey, this is a very easy change. When we submit it to the building, why I have to spend $120,000 with Fred to do this when my 2016 plans were approved? And I'm not adding anything. I deducted everything, car wash and everything, right? There was a building, there was a canopy, which Mr. Dedwal approved. Why did we do that? From staff's guidelines. And then when things keep adding and which things are not clear upfront from the staff, and I spoke to the mayor as well, Ms. Leslie, on the phone, and I said, which direction are we going? I have no idea. So I really wanted to personally come and see, we need to make a decision, which way are we going, It has to happen. Otherwise, commercial development is the need for the city to bring some dollars up. The sooner we start, the better it's gonna be.
Okay. All right. Any more comments from commissioners? Okay. And I'm sorry, did I ask for public comment or no? Yeah, anything else you want to say?
That's pretty much it. We need something in writing.
Got it.
From an email standpoint, from a staff, or we have direct communication with the planning people.
Okay.
Right, Commissioner, so that we know which direction are we going. We cannot just misled from one person and say, you work with historian, now this historian worked and she added all these things, then we put it, and then all of a sudden nobody likes it.
Got it. Brian, question. If we were to do what you're saying and say, could the commission do a special meeting where the public is invited, or we're just in here publicly and marking up stuff and doing that? Is that an option, or is it just only what we send back? As in, if we wanted to sit down together and like mark up some stuff and make some changes, and sit down with this gentleman and say, hey, we're looking to work together, is that an option to do like a special meeting, or is it just email back and forth with staff? You know, like if we, like you're saying, you're not getting the feedback you're wanting, right? So we're representing the community of San Juan, right? And I'm telling you, if we just go, they're gonna come and kill me. So what I'm trying to say is I want to meet in the middle, and if we can all work together and kind of just like sit down, you know, and get it just right, and to make these changes that fit the community, and we were all happy, then well, why not? You know, so that, I think that's what I'm trying to get at, and I don't know if that is something that our commissioners are willing to look at.
Yes.
More volunteer hours.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. It's up to, you know, I'm
Yeah,
just throwing that. I want to meet you in the middle.
I
You
would
know?
like, I would like to think we're working hard to take the frustration out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, you know, from like, I know there are stipulations for formal retail, and I'm not like, I'm not in a business to operate any formal retail. I'm a dentist by profession, right?
Mhm.
This is just a development opportunity, which, you know, which came from Mr. Dadwal, and we adopted it, as you might have been here for a long time, and you know. My thing is there any way we can get some kind of survey from the city, a poll? What would they like to be? There's a retail option comes up there.
Would you say survey?
Like a survey, a
from
poll.
San Juan Bautista, like
If they were open to a
like this is
retail
an election year,
formula.
right? So let's say we propose, we want to have a survey, and this is a freeway site. This is a freeway site, and on a retail, why somebody from San Juan, just I still don't understand. Why would they say no when they pump the gas and they get a Starbucks or something in the morning? I'm not talking about Starbucks. I'm just saying, what would they like to have on that retail shop? I will never operate it. I definitely gonna lease out to somebody. But my thinking is I'm justifying my dollars to build this retail site, or just I build my C-store, right? So when we ask something and then everything is no, and then I'm like, you know, what else we can build? So nothing, you know. I was even thinking to do like a public survey on Facebook or something, if there is a community, and ask San Juan Bautista, like 500 people says yes to Starbucks. Would commission will ever think about it?
Oh, I would, absolutely. I mean, if it's with, if our.
Starbucks is ready to come, like they are like begging us.
Yeah, so, have you read the formula?
I read it.
Yeah.
I read it.
So it's not a blanket prohibition. It's a prohibition against formula businesses coming in here that are going to deplete and take away from our existing businesses. So Starbucks would kill Vertigo,
Mhm.
and we love Vertigo. A Subway would hurt. They have some sandwich shops like Lola's, and others, right?
Mhm.
So it hurt our existing sandwich shops. However, what we don't have, Chinese food, for example, I'm just pulling that out of thin air. So Panda Express, no problem. We don't have Chinese food here.
So these are the, yeah, exactly.
It serves an unmet need.
So
Yeah.
if this somebody like this meeting can happen, because we want to have something there so we can draw. What we need is the trips, right? For more people coming to Panda Express, they can pump gas and they can get food. So whole point of these travel centers, it used to be just gas stations, but how the things are changing, people gonna have more electric cars and people gonna be having food there as well, right? So we are not opposed to Panda Express either, something. So, but we never got any, because I don't know what's in their San Juan Bautista or not, right? So, so just that kind of a poll or survey, what people, and biggest problem with these Formula Ones are when they see the population is only like 2,000, 5,000.
Yeah, no one wants to come here. Yeah.
Look at the traffic counts. It's not about the population. It's about your traffic counts on 156. They're right, we go through the roof.
Exactly.
Yeah, we go through the roof. So you'll get that. Kentucky Fried Chicken. We don't have a chicken place.
KFC.
KFC. There's lots of different things.
Yeah, so these are the things that I want to discuss because we are building it and then we are like, you know, what can we do?
I would love to sit down, and if we can get it down right this one time and give you that fair opportunity, also listen to our community and make sure, you know, you know.
Because we want to build something nice, like as you said, that.
Yeah, I want it to be special. I want you guys to be proud of it. I
Yeah.
want our community to be proud of it. And when they see it, they're like, no, that gas station.
The biggest thing these days is the dollar value. The interest rates are 7.5% to 8% on residential. On commercial is 9.5% to 10%. So we need to definitely get this going so we can start paying for the right on lane, which already is in the process.
Yeah, and I'm kind of going along with Brian here when he's talking about certain elements that we can look at, you know, and like I was asking questions earlier about the island or the fuel station, and I was just trying to figure out where else can we go with that. It's not that we're going to completely change it, but it's good to know where we can or can't go. So that if we want to think more wood, well, maybe we can't because there might be elements where we can't do. But if it's going to be steel, but steel could look like wood too, you know, or it can have a skin that looks like wood. And I also mentioned that you have tile that looks like the solar system. Solar panels can look like tiles too, and it's just I think where are all these elements that might we combine to make all of a sudden it is unique to San Juan, and the experience that you get there when you get gas or food or whatever, you're going to want to come back again, not just for the gas, but also for the town.
Exactly.
And when we're talking money here, you know, as far as the economy goes, you know, we need to find that combination that's going to make money for the town itself and be prosper, and why people live here and hook up to, because to them, the gas station is important for them because we're all connected to it somehow. And I think, you know, a lot of times, you know, all these other places, they just grow and grow and grow. And all of a sudden we're lost with any kind of identity. And I think we have a strong identity here that we can preserve that can be profitable too at the same time, where people like anyone who wants to come in here and find, hey, I want to get connected with San Juan Bautista because we're profitable. That we know we can be profitable there. And I think that's the combination we want to look for too.
No, I agree, but
Okay.
we just need some direction where we can make.
Yeah, and I'm willing to meet in the middle and provide that. And yeah, so Brian, where would we go from here? Do we make a recommendation to set up a special meeting, or how does that look?
You know, one other thing is, Commissioner, on that canopy, we have to watch out because of the, occupancy class of it, the fire and the fuel. So wood is usually, we try to stay away from it. Yeah, you know, I mean, just because of the.
Because it's, I say wood doesn't mean it has to be.
No, I know.
I mean, that's where we need to make sure there are gonna be places where we're gonna benefit with less wood.
Exactly.
But being that we're on wood up here, you know, sure, let's take at least look at the part.
Yeah.
Well, we can schedule a study session or a workshop.
Okay.
That people schedule, and
And then
if
that would
that's
give us time to finish
acceptable
anything
to-
else that
You
might
have
need to be
all these
wrapped up.
plans, and you
Yeah.
can see what recommendations you like, and then we can do a, you know, something over the Zoom, and we can, you know.
All right.
Just turn around something back to you and see, you know, if we met the needs or not. That's great.
I love it. It's
Would you say you're coming from now? No, from Elgrove, Sacramento.
North.
Elgrove.
Okay. Then. Oh, sorry. Yes. Public comment. Sorry, guys. Good call. Good call.
Okay, I really appreciate that you're taking another look at this design. I know years ago, when this first came up, I did submit photos of a gas station that's in Belmont, and it's very rustic looking with wood shake and brick, you know, because this is also an entryway to the De Anza Trail, to Fremont Peak hiking and camping gateway to Pinnacles, more outdoorsy kind of stuff, you know, rural. And as you mentioned, the windmill market. So I had hoped it would be more rustic and woody looking. Maybe it can be metal made to look like wood. The one thing on this this video that we saw, I was somewhat concerned about the garbage enclosure because it seemed to be quite large and very prominent, visible from the public, you know, Highway 156, the public right away. Can't it be put in the back or something? Is there room to do that? Because it just seems to be right there. And in terms of formula, you know, this retail space, I'm a member of the community and I fought against formula businesses. So I don't really would like to see a Starbucks there or a Panda Express and God forbid a KFC. But we could have an independent Chinese restaurant. We used to have one, you know, like, you know, when you go into a big grocery store, they have the, you know, the food there that you can buy to go, something like that, so, with an independent without some kind of formula name on it. Anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments in chambers? Seeing none, we'll move over to Zoom. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is Jackie Morris Lopez, San Juan Bautista resident and City Council member. And I've just been listening very patiently, and I thank the applicant for this project. It's very simply stated and understood that there's been some frustration, and I hear them. And I think we need to be clear with our direction and our desire. He seems like he's very willing to work with us. And it concerns me that the process has been bumpy. And I'm not quite sure why we are so hooked on Mediterranean revival architecture. I also agree with Ms. Karavank, and I think I heard two of the commissioners, if not all three, want more of a wood structure. I hear the windmill strip mall being referred to as an example of what we are wanting. And I agree, you know, to be copacetic with that gateway, it's rustic, that maybe moving away from this so much stucco and tile roofing would be more desirable. And I think we would be who ourselves to be quickly in giving this gentleman, this project owner, a direction quickly. You know, it costs money to resubmit design and talk to architects. And I think we just need to be more accessible and understand that, you know, we need to get things going. This is a project that has had some contentious sides to it in the past, but we have to move forward. And I think it will be a good thing for the city. It's going to be on a major highway, which will bring, you know, tourists to town, and everybody goes away happy with it. But I feel what I'm hearing, this is not the design. So we need to be honest. We need to say we don't want early Mediterranean revival. If that's what we don't want, then we need to be direct and give this this owner some direction. And I like the idea of having some community input. He seems very accessible and willing to hear what the community wants. And I hope that the PC is will take him up on this and move quickly on this. Thank you for your time tonight. And I know where Elk Grove is. It's a nice little community. And thanks for coming out tonight, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Seeing no hands raised.
All right, so, I'm assuming, well, it's a public hearing, right? So
It's an action.
it's an action. So Brian, how would we, word this?
Well, so you don't want to table it, obviously.
Yeah, I wanna work with this gentleman and,
You want to continue the public hearing to your next regular planning commission meeting.
Mhm. For
But
now, yeah.
you also want to, in the meantime, have a study session.
Mhm.
And so your motion would be to continue the public hearing to your next meeting,
Mhm.
and then direct staff to schedule a study session with the applicant, a workshop.
Mr. Chair,
Does
that
that
would,
make sense?
Yes.
that would be my motion.
All right.
I can restate it if you'd like, but did you get the motion? Okay, Leslie?
Okay, then with the motion from Commissioner DeVries and a second from Commissioner Maderos, clerk, can I get a roll call?
Commissioner DeBreeze,
Yes.
Commissioner Maderos,
Yes.
Chair Aranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then, was that it? Yeah. Guess we'll move on. All right, so now, moving on to, item number 6, discussions. A preliminary draft zoning ordinance amendments to zoning ordinance chapter 1104. I'm assuming 030.
Right. Can we do that? Can we continue that next month since we've been out?
Are you sure? I'm okay to just get it, because doesn't this expire? It expires.
It doesn't,
Well, the
well, what happens is, we have temporary uses of land permits.
yeah. We're gonna take a 5-minute break. And then just let me know when we're ready to rock and roll. Oh, there we go. All right, hi. Okay, we're back. All right, so we're gonna move on to our next agenda item. Agenda item number 6, discussion preliminary draft zoning ordinance amendments to zoning ordinance chapter 1104-030. Staff, can I get a report? Or do I? Yeah.
Yeah, just 1 second.
Thank you. 2.
Okay, so I won't belabor the history here. Everybody knows what the history is. There's been a lot of controversy about the existing zoning code, and based on some enforcement actions, there's a lot of motivation to change things. So we did present your last hearing an ordinance that was, creative and solved some problems, but then the commission wanted to talk to people in the community. So I think you had ad hoc committee. Your notes are in the agenda packet. We looked at those notes and they're pretty basic. And really what the ad hoc committee really wanted to see was something that would be self-operating in terms of more permissiveness, but with some reasonable restraints. So what we did was I left the mixed use district alone. In this particular draft, which I think is appropriate. There's a lot of good stuff in there about pedestrian amenities that we're going to want to have for the future. And we don't want to mess with that because I think it works pretty well to create the kind of environment downtown that we all like. Lots of pedestrian activity and, placemaking, so forth. So looking at the ordinance that was presented before, we had a system where there were permitted uses and then there were administratively approved uses and then there were conditionally approved use. It got kind of complicated. So in keeping with the ad hoc committee's recommendations, we sort of pared that down to establish something very basic, which was really looking at the kinds of permitted uses that we thought were appropriate. Product displays, for example, outside an enclosed building, provided that they are, these outdoor displays aren't just general merchandise, and not everybody can have an outdoor display. So we don't want a lot of clutter in the downtown. We want to keep things, kind of accessible, lively, but not overly cluttered. So the existing ordinance does a good job there. It just provides that existing specialty shops can put stuff outside, provided that you maintain pedestrian access. So this ordinance preliminary draft does the same thing. Then in addition, it adds what everybody's been concerned about, which is the sale of products, dining and personal services that are normally conducted at any business. So if you've got a business, no matter what it is, in any of these commercial categories, you can do your business outside an enclosed building, provided you're on private property. And then you can only have these permitted uses during times when the business is open. What it also does is it allows this pop-up concept. So the personal services normally conducted at any business and any other business operating legally in the city. So it doesn't specify necessarily that, you know, in terms of what that legally established means, but basically it means you've got a business license, you have a seller's permit, you've got a health department permit, whatever is necessary to make your business legal, you've got it. Piece of paper that says you're good. And then there's a section in here for, you know, reference to business license. And then there are some pertinent or accessory things that go along with some of these things that people like to have: a sign. They want to have a table, a rack, a display that allows people to see what they're selling and do business out there. And then provided that people can walk around that space, then that's acceptable. Then above and beyond, there are some conditional uses that would be where a permit is required. And this is where some discretion on the part of the commission is appropriate based on what you heard out there in the community. If you've got outdoor business being conducted more than 2 days a week, you need, or you're within an area required for or currently used as on-site parking. So you have to pair this too. So it's not just the limitation on days, it's that you have to be more than 2 days a week within an area that's used for parking. So it's not that you're out there with your outdoor business for more than 2 days. It has to be, in order to qualify conditional use permit, you have to be using a parking space that's on site, that's otherwise supposed to be dedicated to satisfy your parking requirement. So if that happens for more than 2 days in a parking space on site, then you need a conditional use permit. If you've got mobile food vendors, more than 2 of those occupying the same site at any time, one time, then you need a conditional use permit. It's an aggregation of mobile food vendors would require that the commission take a look and say, well, you know, what are the requirements for access? What are the requirements for fire safety, for a bill? Is this an assembly use that's being created here? What is the circumstance that needs to be, could need to be regulated with a condition of approval? It's not that you can't do it. It just means that it needs a special, you know, more detailed look. And then if you've got amplified music, if you've got use on a historic property that's designated under inventory, or if you need to modify the site to accommodate these outdoor uses, then you need to come in and get a use permit in addition to your site and design review permit. And then there's sort of a catch-all here as a third item for conditional uses. And this is where we have a conversation with a person that wants to do business in town. We think that it's going to create problems for neighbors, or we think it's going to create problems for an adjacent use that we think is more sensitive. It's something right next door to a residence, and it's got a lot of things going on that seem to be performance issues like noise, odors, circulation, mix of uses could result in traffic and circulation issues that aren't really anticipated until you look at them more carefully. So in those cases, community development director can recommend and direct that the planning commission take a look. Now, when you get it, it doesn't mean you have to issue a conditional use permit. It just means that community development director wasn't really positive that this is a good thing, and so is going to refer to the planning commission under these circumstances where there could be real conflicts occurring between uses. And then in something that we don't currently have in the industrial districts is that we don't want to have all our industrial uses conducted within a building necessarily. Some of them need to be outdoors. And so with a conditional use permit, some of those things can be outdoors. Right now, our code doesn't allow any industrial uses outside an enclosed building. So that's a little bit overly restrictive, and this would solve that problem. And then what this does in the industrial districts is it says that when you determine acceptable activities within or outside an enclosed building, you're going to decide whether it's okay to have an outdoor use. You're going to look at these factors, and these are real sort of performance related things, like environmental constraints or potential conflicts with adjacent uses, hazardous substances and materials, that kind of thing. If you look at it and you are trying to figure out whether to allow this thing outside or indoors, then you can make a decision using this particular standard that doesn't currently exist in our code. So it's a way for the commission to make a decision where things aren't really clear cut, which I think is kind of important. And then there are some performance standards that are currently exist in our code. We need to have them because what they say is that if you've got a problem land use, we don't want it. If it's going to create danger, it's going to be injurious, it's going to be noxious, it's going to be explosive hazard materials, cause all these problems, then we don't necessarily want those, should be prohibited. And so there's a prohibition on dangerous or objectionable elements within uses that would apply in all land uses, whether it's commercial, retail, or industrial. If you've got a problem land use, then it's prohibited, and spells out the kinds of things that are prohibited. So fire and explosive hazards, radioactive or electrical disturbance, noise, that kind of thing could get in excess of values listed in general plan. So those kinds of things we want to be able to restrict and prohibit. And somebody said when we first started here that, oh, this would prohibit you from having an X-ray lab, and no, because these things aren't creating objectionable disturbances outside the confines of the use itself. So no, that's what do you want to call it? That's an argument that doesn't really apply. So that's basically the ordinance, and there are a number of things that will have to change in other parts of the code in order to accommodate this ordinance. And so when you get it back for your public hearing in December, the actual ordinance will have a bunch of other stuff with it. So, for example, the list of the chart of land uses, that's got to be modified. Just for example, and there could be other sections. Parking, for example, might need to be modified. We have something that relates to accessory uses or things like that. That portions of that might need to be modified. So we'll do a scan through the whole ordinance, and we'll pick up any other changes that need to be made in response to these provisions, so that we're internally consistent.
Got it. All right. Well, any comments from, well, no, it's a discussion item. So do you guys have anything? I know I got a few things I want to.
One question I have, as far as the use permits, seems like that's kind of smoothing over a lot of problems, right? That we were in. And I'm thinking, why stop that, right? So keep that going, for one thing, as we go through this. So I think we solved the problem somewhat, and we're just going to cement it with a new update. So thanks for that. Thanks for the ad hoc committee for doing this. Appreciate it.
You want me to say my stuff, or you want to go? I think for me, I just want to look at the use that is conducted per days per week for the whether it's the mobile food vendors or pop-ups or whatever. I know we have 2 days. I want to account for maybe making it 4 days. So in case there's a holiday coming up or we're doing some type of festival, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then, that can be something. And then also, I'm not sure, Brian, the two vendors, what would happen if, like, let's just say, if I attend Vertigo's pop-up thing that they're doing now, and they have a food truck and then another vendor, is that considered two things, or is the food pop-up thing two separate things? They're separate? Okay, so if they had two food trucks, 2 or 3, 4
Well, these
little
are,
tables.
these are mobile food vendors.
Okay.
And we could, I think you're talking about, well, somebody has, bread
Yeah.
to sell and, or muffins.
Mhm.
And is that a mobile food vendor? No.
No, okay.
So I think we could make that a little clearer.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's like, hey, I got my 2 food trucks on this property. It's really cool. We got room for it, 4 days. But then also at the same time, I also have someone selling
Yeah.
jewelry, but also selling
It's
candles.
Food. It's food.
Yeah, okay. So I just want to make sure that doesn't count.
Pop-up retail, not referenced here because that you can do
If
whatever.
whatever you want, which is stated up
Do
here.
as much as you like.
Got it. And then, all right, well, then that makes sense. And then 3, again, this, if someone wanted to challenge any of this, they can always come to the planning commission, right? And come see us, or is that only per, you saying, I don't think this fits the bill?
Well, what happens is that it's like everything else. Staff makes a decision. That then gets appealed to the city manager. The city manager then makes a decision that gets appealed to the planning commission or city council. So there's a tier here.
Got it.
And, with reference to this condition that we we're talking about before,
Mhm.
city engineer could say, yeah, I want this connected. Well, they're gonna appeal that to the city manager, and the city manager is gonna talk to the city engineer and say, I don't know that this is really necessary.
No.
And then that way the property owner gets relief, but there has to have that conversation.
Okay.
Where there's, so if we make a decision, for example, and that's why this sort of catch-all here regarding what the community development director might want.
Okay.
That could result in a conversation where the city manager disagrees with the community development director, and then, gets overruled, and then, that's the end of it at that point.
Okay.
So, could happen.
Got it. And then again, going back to pop-ups and stuff, that would just come with the territory. You have a business, I want to do pop-ups in my back patio. You don't need to go and apply for permits as long as they have their business license and all that. They don't have to come into City Hall and apply and just go through all the hell to make it.
Right.
Got it. Good. That's what we wanted. We
Legally
wanted to be
operating, you're
easy.
good to go.
Okay, perfect. And then the mobile food trucks and stuff, are they following that same step too, or they're having to apply for something?
No,
Like food trucks?
This allowance here covers
that as well.
products, dining, personal services. You can do this. You want to have 1 food truck?
Got it.
Or 2 food trucks?
I wanted to do 2
Yeah,
at
2 food
least,
trucks?
2 food trucks.
Then you can go ahead and do it. When you have more than 2 and you're in a parking place, but you want 4.
Oh, no, 4 days, 4
You
days.
want 4 days. So you
Yeah, in
got-
case there's a festival going on, then we're
Right,
not
so-
then we're having to kick them out, and I think Friday,
Yeah,
Saturday,
so-
Sunday, Monday's fair.
So with your revision, it would be 4 days in a parking space.
Exactly.
Gets you a use permit. Anything less than that, less than 4 days is good.
Is
So
good.
you got the 2 food trucks,
Some
3 food
pop-ups.
trucks, 3 food trucks in a parking space is permitted.
Got it. Cool.
You don't exceed that standard.
Got it. And so then they can just do it as long as they have all their
Yeah.
paperwork in.
Right.
Perfect. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's
So it operates.
yeah. I think it makes it business friendly here in town.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the ordinance is intended to be self-operating.
Operating.
Yeah.
Perfect. You nailed it. That's all the comments I got. All right. well then, yeah, sorry, public comment, right, sorry, I'm just, yeah.
Haravonk. Sorry, I didn't fill out a thing. It's the first time I've had a chance to look at this, so I have a question about outside displays. No sales, that section.
Mhm.
So what were you envisioning? Are you gonna allow blow up balloon cartoon characters? Are you gonna allow whirligigs? You know, A-frames with a big flower painted on it or something? What exactly did you have in mind on outside displays? Because I'm concerned about that part of it.
I think, you know, I don't know if you want to answer, or I can give you kind of a, what I'm thinking.
What's currently allowed is
Well-
what this will allow. So what's currently allowed is a product display that is associated with a specialty store like what's listed here. So if you have that and you have I don't know, is a toy store a specialty store?
Depends on toys.
Yeah, or is it general merchandise?
Mhm.
So there's some judgment here
Mhm.
that, you know, for example, code enforcement will go down the street and they'll see general merchandise. They'll look in the store and they'll see a store that has general merchandise. Well, that's product display of general merchandise. That would not fit this requirement. But if you've got a specialty store, and this is this is similar, you know, businesses that are similar to specialties, like a hat shop. That's a specialty store. So I suppose if you had a balloon store and you had balloons outside, that would be a specialty store. And then you could put your display out. So it's designed to control clutter in general by focusing on specialty stores only.
Well, okay, because I thought maybe something changed along the way. I did not I thought no outside displays were allowed.
That's not true.
Well,
That's not true.
okay, I think you're heading down the wrong track.
It's what's in the current ordinance.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that needs to be changed in my opinion, because we have a lot of junk, you know, sitting out on in front of our shops,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Well, I think, yeah, and just, I don't want to get into a debate, but
Yeah.
that's headed in the other direction.
Yeah, no, I get it. I will, I think you're right in some aspect, but I also want to make sure that we're protecting these pop-up businesses' interests, right? If they want to sell their candles, I think they should be able to have a sign that says, we're selling candles, you know what I mean? Like, you know, or you're not really going to know what's going on with them, right? So I don't know, I guess we can sit down and
You
talk
might
about
want
that.
to think about it a little bit
A little
more,
more.
and the definition of specialty store.
Got it.
You know, somebody that sells I don't know, blended drinks,
Yeah.
or somebody that sells Mexican imports,
Right.
or, you know, vintage clothes. Is that a specialty store? I mean, that's what they sell.
No.
Okay,
Just information, we have had code enforcement, for people that have, what do you want to call it, merchandise that is old,
Got it.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's general merchandise, it's just old.
That's it.
And so we've said, well, that's not specialty. We have to take that stuff off the sidewalk.
Okay.
So.
Perfect. Any other comments in chambers? And any on Zoom? All right, then I guess we can move to an adjournment. All right, move to adjourn. Can
Second.
oh, nope, sorry. Nope. Comment.
Hello, thank you once again, Chair and Planning Commissioners. This is Jackie Morse Lopez again, resident City Council member. And I too agree with the last speaker, Ms. Vonk's comments about how you define specialty store. And also, I think I agree with you, Chair. As far as pop-ups go, I don't think that really applies because pop-ups insinuate to me that they're very far and few in between. They're not permanent residents or shop holders. But what I do see and what I am not thinking it applies to is when we have, brick and mortar downtown that have their wares outside, and one would consider it to be specialty or not, but it's that definition that's too general. And for me, it's just about the clutter. There's just way too much clutter downtown. I don't know how to say it any other polite way. But I'm not fond of that clutter. And I think we really have to look at that part of the ordinance. I like the good things about being more user friendly when it comes to allowing food trucks and pop-ups in general. I think that those are all great points with this new ordinance, but I really would, you know, um, direct you to look at that one portion about sidewalk sales or display of goods. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, one thing to understand here is that the pop-up retail is supposed to be on private property.
Got it.
And the restrictions on specialty stores and display permitted on the sidewalk, that's designed to control the clutter aspect. So, yeah.
Perfect. So any other comments from Zoom? No? All right. I'm going to be moving over to an adjournment. The next regular commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. It is 8:55 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.
We were waiting for them. We thought they were gonna talk about the Christopher property development.